Chapter 562. Ever since Fuxi showed his might and saved the Khanate alliance from the siege of the Khanate ferocious beasts, the attitude of the people of the Khanate alliance towards Fuxi changed. Their previous hostility turned into reverence and a trace of fear. How could they not be afraid? The group of Khanate ferocious beasts that could almost destroy the Khanate alliance was forced to retreat by Fuxi alone. This kind of power could completely destroy the Khanate alliance alone. Wouldn't it be courting death to be enemies with such a person? With this thought in mind, the Khanate alliance gradually did not dare to provoke the human race. There were even some Khanate races who couldn't help but want to join the human race when they saw how powerful Fuxi was. Great, the innate alliance that was already not united to begin with after this incident, it could be said that it had completely ceased to exist in name. When the remaining Khanate races saw this, they knew that they could not go against the general trend. They also joined the human race in order to obtain Fuxi's protection. At this point, the Khanate alliance was considered to have collapsed. At this moment, in the primordial world, except for some Khanate races who were still holding on to the glory of being Khanate lifeforms, most of the other Khanate races had joined the human race. As a result, the primordial world, which had been in chaos since the creation of the world, was finally unified. All the races respected the human race. This was even the 3 Khanate races. And what the Magi and demons had not done. Now, it was done by the human race. Although, the 10,000 races were a little exaggerated. No matter what, in name, the human race had unified the primordial world. It was also at this moment that the destiny of heaven and earth began to gather towards the human race to increase their foundation. However, although the human race had unified the primordial world, the chaos of the Khanate ferocious beasts was still not over. They were still causing chaos in the primordial world. Moreover, in the dark, the demon sect was eyeing covetously. No one knew what schemes they were planning. It could be said that if these threats were not eliminated, the primordial world would not be peaceful, and the 10,000 races would not be stable. The rule of the human race would be shaken at any time. Therefore, after Fuxi obtained the loyalty of the 10,000 races, he was determined to integrate the power of the 10,000 races to quell the chaos of the ferocious beasts in one fell swoop and return peace to the primordial world. Today, the 10,000 races gathered in the ancestral land of the human race. They were responding to Fuxi's call. They swore an alliance to fight against the Khanate ferocious beasts. At the same time, this move also meant to establish the dignity of the human tribe, deepen the human tribe's rule over the untainted land, and clarify the status of the human tribe among the 10,000 tribes. Although the human race had unified the untainted land, they were still too weak and had too few experts. If it weren't for Fuxi's unparalleled battle prowess, the primordial races wouldn't have taken the human race seriously. At this moment, Fuxi was the one that the innate races respected, not the human race. This situation was extremely unfavorable to the human race. If Fuxi were to disappear for a period of time, the innate races would definitely have other ideas and overthrow the human race's rule. All in all, the rule of the human race was not stable, and they relied too much on individual strength, which meant that they were not worthy of their positions. The solution to this problem was simple. They had to work hard to increase the strength of the human race so that they would be worthy of their status. They had to shift the respect of the other races towards Fuxi to the human race. It was easier said than done. The environment of the world had changed, and the path of cultivation in the future would only become more and more difficult. It would be difficult for a force as powerful as the shamans and demons to appear again. We are willing to follow Fuxi's lead and form an alliance to resist the Khanate ferocious beasts. Under the witness of heaven and earth, the leaders of the primordial races made an alliance with Fuxi. They were willing to follow his orders and quell the chaos of the Khanate ferocious beasts together. Whoosh! With the establishment of the alliance, an intense change occurred in the mysterious and unfathomable River of Destiny. The tributary of the River of Destiny that belonged to the human race suddenly flowed rapidly. At the same time, the tributary formed by the providence of the primordial races split off and flowed towards the providence of the human race. Whoosh! Whoosh! The providence of the primordial races used their own providence to strengthen the providence of the human race. It was like 100 rivers returning to the sea, causing the providence of the human race to become stronger and stronger. Gradually, it overshadowed all the other races and became the largest of the countless tributaries of the River of Destiny. Boom! At this moment, the torch that symbolized the providence of the human race suddenly soared. From the previous 5 colors, it transformed into hundreds of millions of colors. From afar, it looked like a ball of resplendent light that was incomparably dazzling. At this moment, the providence of the human race soared. And at the same time as the providence skyrocketed, the providence feedback also began. Rumble. Almost at the same time, hundreds of human golden immortals ascended to Tai Jinxian, greatly increasing the foundation of the human race. The remaining mystic immortals, celestial immortals, and cultivators who had yet to ascend to the immortal Tao were also countless. There was also a half-step Daluo Jinxian existence who, with the help of the providence feedback, finally took the crucial step and cultivated into a Daluo Jinxian. Now, he existed with the world and with the heavens. Of course, these were not the most eye-catching. The most eye-catching was still Fuxi. He, who was already a mid-saint, directly stepped into the perfected demi-saint realm with the help of the human race's providence, becoming the top great master of the wilderness in one fell swoop. At this moment, the primordial races that were already in awe of Fuxi were even more in awe. High in the sky, where the origin space was located in the deepest layer of heaven and earth, as the primordial races worshipped Fuxi, wisps of clear light began to converge, gradually condensing into a droplet-shaped treasure. This item was surrounded by a dense aura of heaven and earth, and countless mysterious Tao patterns were faintly discernible within it. It was as if one could see the evolution of heaven and earth, the changes of the great Tao, and its extreme mysteries. It came from the same source as the heavenly Tao, flickering with an inexplicable luster, interweaving the trajectory of fate, as if it could affect everything. This was the mandate of heaven and earth's protagonist. As long as the mandate of heaven merged with the human race's providence, it meant that the human race would become the protagonist of heaven and earth. Unfortunately, the mandate of heaven had just been born and was far from mature. Moreover, even if it was now mature, the human race's current providence would not be able to accept the mandate of heaven. Therefore, all of this needed to wait for the human race to become stronger. The mandate of heaven was closely related to the human race. The stronger the human race was, the faster the mandate of heaven would condense. Since the alliance had been established, Fuxi did not stand on ceremony. He directly selected experts from the primordial races to form an army and began to practice the formation. This was training the soldiers. It was best to use array formations to deal with primordial ferocious beasts. Otherwise, even if the human alliance army defeated the primordial ferocious beasts, they would suffer heavy losses and leave an opportunity for the demon sect to take advantage of. Therefore, in the battle with the primordial ferocious beasts, not only did the human alliance army have to win, but they also had to preserve their strength as much as possible. Otherwise, if the demon sect were to take advantage of them, it would be terrible. Fuxi was training his troops, so let's not talk about it for the time being. On the other hand, the demon sect had lost several supreme experts in succession. It could be said that their vitality had been greatly damaged. They should have kept a low profile to prevent others from taking advantage of them. However, because of the appearance of the ruins of End, not only did the demon sect not shrink their forces, but they became even more arrogant. They kept causing trouble in the primordial world to show their existence. They were planning to completely walk from the dark to the light. In fact, the demon sect could not be blamed for doing so. After suffering consecutive blows, the upper echelons of the demon sect suddenly realized that the situation in the primordial world was gradually becoming more and more disadvantageous for them. If this continued, the demon sect's opportunity to prosper would be over just as it began. The upper echelons of the demon sect naturally would not allow this. They had waited for countless years for an opportunity for the demon sect to prosper. They were about to suppress the Shen sect and return to the primordial world. However, for some reason, for heaven and earth supremes suddenly appeared and destroyed the great situation that the demon sect had created with great difficulty. They completely reversed the situation of the primordial world and defeated the rising momentum of the demon sect. The upper echelons of the demon sect were filled with hatred. However, they had no choice. The other party was too strong. They could not defeat him at all. However, it was absolutely impossible for them to give up the opportunity that the demon sect had waited for with great difficulty. Therefore, the upper echelons of the demon sect decided to go all out. They would move from the dark to the light and fight for their lives with the heavens. Before the saints returned, they would take down the primordial world. If they won, the demon sect would prosper and be able to suppress the Shen sect. If they lost, it did not matter. The demon sect was already in such a state. If they were to fall, how far could they fall? This was a typical example of a barefoot person not being afraid of wearing shoes. The Shen sect was huge and had many scruples. The demon sect was different. Other than their lives, they had nothing. When they did things, they naturally had no taboos. Only when they had no attachments could they have no scruples. However, the demon sect wanted to make a final gamble, which happened to be what Hao Yin and the others wanted. The chaos of the Khanate beasts was handed over to the human race and the Khanate 10,000 races. The demon sect would naturally be dealt with by the heavenly court and the Shen sect. However, the demon sect was hidden too deeply. They could not find their nest at all. In that case, how could they destroy it? However, now that the demon sect had taken the initiative to walk out, Hao Yin and the others would not foolishly wait for them to come. Naturally, they took the initiative to attack. After receiving the news of the demon sect's appearance, Hao Yin, Gao Chen, and Lu Ai's, who were searching for traces of the demon sect in the primordial world, rushed to the demon sect together. They intended to kill all the experts of the demon sect before the demon ancestor Rahu appeared. To them, if they weakened the demon sect's strength as much as possible now, their chances of survival would be higher when the demon ancestor Rahu settled the score. East Sea, Penglai Immortal Island of the Three Immortal Islands. With the end of the shaman and demon tribulation, the shackles that restricted Shen Qing's breakthrough had long disappeared without a trace. In other words, after the baptism of the tribulation, Shen Qing could finally take a step forward and break through from the Daluo Jingxian to the sage-to-be. In fact, Shen Qing could have broken through tens of thousands of years ago. However, he hesitated. That was because he was a direct descendant of the Three Pure Ones, the most authentic disciple of the celestial sect of wonders. He also cultivated the most profound celestial sect techniques. Since that was the case, if he broke through to the sage-to-be realm, he would naturally take the path of the three corpses of the celestial sect of wonders. Otherwise, he would directly use his strength to prove his Tao and break through to the sage-to-be realm. That did not make sense. Shen Qing was formed from the clear air of the nine heavens. He was born with a powerful primordial spirit and a weak physical body. This did not mean that he could not use his strength to prove his Tao. Instead, this method was completely ineffective for him. The gains did not make up for the losses. The path of the three corpses was the most suitable for him. Shen Qing naturally knew the method of the three corpses, and there was more than one. They were all top-notch. Not to mention, he had long understood the good and evil corpses and could slash them at any time. However, Shen Qing did not want to slash the corpses. To be precise, Feng Zichen did not want to slash the corpses. From the Tao ancestors' point of view, whether it was good, evil, or obsession, they would all affect one's Tao heart. In order to seek the Tao ancestor was determined to slash it out to strengthen his Tao heart. He could also prevent himself from being affected by emotions and maintain an absolutely calm state of mind. However, this was the Tao of the Tao ancestor. It was the Tao of the celestial sect of wonders. It was the Tao of the heavens, not Feng Zichen's Tao. Feng Zichen's Tao had long been self-contained. It had transcended the Tao of the heavens, covered everything, and pointed directly to the origin of the Tao. He was worried that after he slashed the three corpses, he would be affected by the Tao of the Tao ancestor and mess up his own Tao. Therefore, Feng Zichen did not plan to slash the corpses. Especially the supreme state of mind that he had obtained after slashing the three corpses. The moment he became the great Taoist priest, he naturally had it. Just this point alone made Feng Zichen give up on the idea of slashing the three corpses. The risk was too great and the benefits were too small. It was not worth the risk at all. However, if he did not slash the corpses, he would not be able to become a sage-to-be. That would be troublesome. He directly used strength to prove his Tao. Feng Zichen was confident that he could hide it from the primitive world cultivators. However, he definitely could not hide it from the saint of the prime clear lineage. A person who specialized in the great Tao of the celestial sect of wonders suddenly used strength to prove his Tao. Unless the saint of the prime clear lineage was a fool, he would definitely suspect Shen Qing's identity. For this, after Shen Qing became an early-stage quasi-saint, he did not break through for a long time. He was completely in a dilemma. This dilemma lasted for tens of thousands of years. Only today did Shen Qing think of a solution. Since he could not break through with the slashing the three corpses technique, he would think of a way to improve this technique. He would imitate the supreme experts of the primordial era and walk a path that belonged to him alone. In this way, even if he did not break through with the slashing the three corpses technique, the saint of the prime clear lineage would not doubt him. Instead, he would praise him. Slashing one's own Tao was an incredible feat in any era. It would become a legend and be remembered and worshipped by the world. A long time ago, there was no such realm as a quasi-saint in the world. Above the Daluo Jingxian was the primordial Daluo Jingxian. However, after the Tao ancestor attained the Tao, a quasi-saint realm was separated from the Daluo Jingxian. This method was simple. A long time ago, the Daluo Jingxian had two cultivation processes. First, he cultivated the three flowers above his head. When he reached perfection, he began to jump out of the river of time and space. Therefore, the Tao ancestor divided this process into two realms. The process of cultivating the three flowers above his head was still called the Daluo Jingxian. The process of jumping out of the river of time and space was called the quasi-saint realm. Shen Qing's plan was, he would not slash the three corpses anymore. He would directly slash the past, future, and present. This method was much more difficult than the slashing the three corpses, but the benefits were obvious. That was, when he broke through to the primordial Daluo Jingxian in the future, it would be easier than the cultivators who cultivated the slashing the three corpses technique. Why was the slashing the three corpses technique popular in the primordial world? Was it because he was strong enough? No, it was because he was the simplest, universal, and suitable for most cultivators. Therefore, he could surpass all techniques and become the mainstream of the primordial world. Compared to the slashing the three corpses technique, the former could only be said to be difficult at first, and the latter could be said to be difficult at first. It was hard to say which was good and which was bad. Could be said that each had its own merits. Chapter 563. One thing to say was that Shen Qing's slashing the past and future technique had absorbed a lot of essence from the slashing three corpses technique. The slashing three corpses technique created by the Tao ancestor was amazing. It was one of the easiest techniques to achieve the Tao. In addition to the state of mind, the slashing three corpses technique could also allow one to have three powerful incarnations. What was even more amazing was that with these three powerful incarnations, one could save a lot of time to break through to the primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian. One had to know that, in order to break through to the primordial chaos Tao realm, one had to have enough origin to support them. Just like demon god Ji-Du, although he had reached the realm, his innate origin was insufficient. He was still not considered a primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian. And the three corpses were used to increase the origin. When the three corpses were combined, one would become a primordial chaos cultivator. With the origin contained in these three powerful incarnations, a cultivator could become a primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian as quickly as possible. Shen Qing planned to absorb this advantage. To be precise, Shen Qing did not change the slashing three corpses technique passed down by the Tao ancestor much. He replaced the three corpses of good and evil with the past, future, and present. The rest was basically unchanged. With an idea in mind, Shen Qing directly deduced this technique with the Hongmeng Daozhong. It's time to break through. Shen Qing stood up silently and took out the 12th grade green lotus of creation and the 12th grade white lotus of purification. The slashing three corpses technique required a connate numinous treasure. The slashing past and future technique was born from this technique, so it naturally required a connate numinous treasure. Moreover, this connate numinous treasure could not be chosen casually. It was related to his future path of Tao, so he had to be careful. It was best if it was a connate numinous treasure that was compatible with his Tao. Xian Qing's choice was the green lotus of creation. Although this treasure had the word creation, it was inextricably related to the chaos and could be compatible with all the Tao in the world. It was perfect to use it as a sustenance. Moreover, Xian Qing had other thoughts about using the green lotus of creation as a sustenance. Now, he had obtained 2 of the 4 connate lotus of the primordial world. Together with the green lotus of creation that was not among them, there were 3 of them. The 3 natural lotus flowers came from the same source, and they were all top-notch natural spirit treasures. Once they fused into one, they would directly become a natural cardinal treasure, and their level wouldn't be too low. Furthermore, to a certain extent, the Chaos Green Lotus was also considered a heaven-splitting holy artifact. Its contribution to the primordial world was not much lower than the heaven-splitting axe. According to this, the Green Lotus of creation, which represented part of the chaotic Green Lotus origin, could also be considered a heaven-opening treasure in a sense. Even if it wasn't as good as the 3 supreme treasures of heaven-splitting, it wasn't far off. In other words, Xian Qing could have a connate cardinal treasure at any time, and it would be a connate cardinal treasure that could rival the 3 heaven-opening cardinal treasures. Think about it. In the future, Xian Qing stood on the green lotus of good fortune. It was equivalent to being in an invincible position. Almost no one in the great desolate world could break the defense of the creation green lotus. Its defense was even stronger than the heaven-earth mysterious yellow pagoda. With this supreme treasure, Xian Qing could be said to have no worries. Wasn't that a beautiful scene? It was simply too beautiful. However, Xian Qing did not dare to let the green lotus of creation become an innate cardinal treasure, because it was too strong. There was only so much luck to open heaven, and it had already been divided by the 3 heaven-opening cardinal treasures. In addition to some scattered connate treasures, the remaining luck to open heaven was gone. If Xian Qing created another heaven-opening cardinal treasure, not to mention whether the heavenly Tao would agree, even the 3 pure ones would not agree. If the heaven-opening cardinal treasure appeared, where would the luck to open heaven come from? Naturally, it would be split from the 3 heaven-opening cardinal treasures. For no reason, the 3 heaven-opening cardinal treasures became 4 heaven-opening cardinal treasures. How could the owner be willing to give away some luck for nothing? Of course not. If it was Feng Zichen, he would not be willing either. Therefore, once the connate cardinal treasure level green lotus of creation appeared, the Grand Pure One and Jade Pure One would definitely sense it and want to destroy this treasure. Even the Grand Pure One would probably take action. For no other reason than the Qingping sword, they had to take action. The Tao corroboration treasures of the 3 pure ones were all formed by the green lotus of creation and were naturally restrained by it. As a saint, how could he tolerate the existence of something that restrained him? Naturally, he would think of ways to destroy it. Even the owner of this treasure, Xian Qing, was no exception. Just the 3 pure ones alone were enough to give people a headache, let alone the heavenly Tao that could not tolerate the existence of the green lotus of creation. No one could withstand that. Therefore, even if the heavenly Tao and the 3 pure ones were not in the primordial world, Xian Qing did not dare to fuse with the 3 lotuses and advance the green lotus of creation to a connate cardinal treasure. This treasure was a disaster. Once it appeared, it would definitely attract the hostility of the heavenly Tao and the 3 pure ones. Therefore, to be safe, it was better not to let it be born. However, Xian Qing was vaguely unwilling. The connate cardinal treasure was right in front of him, but he could not take it out due to various concerns. It was really torturous. Left with no choice, Xian Qing thought of a solution that was not a solution. That was to use the green lotus of creation as a sustenance and use its origin to cut off the past, future, and present. Even if it was a connate cardinal treasure, after being slashed 3 times, it could not retain its original grade. This way, although Xian Qing did not obtain a connate cardinal treasure, he had 3 powerful incarnations. Moreover, after Shenqing broke through to become primordial chaos Dalio Jinxian, the 3 incarnations could merge and directly obtain the Khanate Cardinal Creation Green Lotus of Creation. At that time, Shenqing would control the Green Lotus of Creation with his primordial chaos power. He would not have so many concerns. Keep. Shenqing took action as soon as he thought of it. He raised the Hongmeng Daozhong and directly kept the Green Lotus of Creation and the White Lotus of Purification. After that, Shenqing also entered the Hongmeng Daozhong. The Hongmeng Daozhong isolated everything. What was done inside could not be seen by the outside world. Inside the Hongmeng Daozhong, in the boundless purple space, 3 huge lotus flowers stood tall. One was green, one was white, and one was black. Each of them emitted a bright Tao light. They were the 12th grade Green Lotus of Creation, the 12th grade Black Lotus of Destruction, and the 12th grade White Lotus of Purification. Green Lotus of Creation. Rise. After coming to the purple space, Shenqing directly raised the 12th grade Green Lotus of Creation and let it devour the other 2 Khanate lotus flowers. Swoosh, 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 thick roots stretched out from the roots of the Green Lotus of Creation and swept toward the Black Lotus of Destruction and the White Lotus of Purification. The Black Lotus of Destruction and the White Lotus of Purification sensed the danger and instinctively wanted to resist. But Shenqing's reaction was faster. He directly attacked and suppressed the 2 Khanate lotus flowers together with the Green Lotus of Creation. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The White Lotus of Purification and the Black Lotus of Destruction were entangled by the roots of the Green Lotus of Creation and let out an unwilling buzzing sound. But unfortunately, in the face of Shenqing's suppression, they were powerless to resist. They could only watch as their Khanate origins were lost little by little. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh as the Green Lotus of Creation devoured the Khanate origins of the Black Lotus of Destruction and the Black Lotus of Purification. It shook excitedly and revealed a joyful mood. As time passed, the Tao light on the Black Lotus of Destruction and the White Lotus of Purification became dimmer and dimmer. On the other hand, the Tao light on the Green Lotus of Creation became more and more dazzling. Poof! An extra petal appeared on the Green Lotus of Creation, and it became a 13th grade lotus flower. On the other hand, the Black Lotus of Destruction and the White Lotus of Purification each lost a petal. Very good. Seeing this scene, Shenqing nodded his head in satisfaction. He then closed his eyes and his mind gradually sank into the river of time and space. He began to search for his shadow of the past. The first thing to be cut was the past. Standing on the river of time and space, Shenqing looked back and saw everything that he had experienced since he was born. All of it appeared before his eyes. Then, Shenqing looked at the future and saw countless images coming to him, explaining the various possibilities of the future for him. Finally, Shenqing lowered his head and looked at the river of time and space. His appearance was clearly reflected in it. This was the present. Cut! Shenqing formed a sword with his fingers and gently waved it behind him. Suddenly, the countless memories were all shattered and turned into a figure that was identical to Shenqing and appeared in front of him. After that, Shenqing did not stop. He continued to form a sword with his fingers and slashed at his feet. Bang! The calm water surface. Suddenly, layers of ripples appeared. A figure slowly emerged from the water surface and stood behind Shenqing. One was the past and the other was the present. In a few breaths, Shenqing had cut off 2 corpses and entered the late stage of Sage-to-be. With his half-step primordial chaos, it was naturally not difficult to cut off the 2 corpses. However, it was a little troublesome to cut off the future. The future was ethereal and unpredictable. If he wanted to cut it off, he would need some opportunities. However, Shenqing was already very satisfied with cutting off 2 corpses. With his identity, cutting off 2 corpses was just right. If he went any further, it would be a little eye-catching. His mind left the river of time and space, and Shenqing looked at the creation Green Lotus. At this time, it had already bloomed to the 18th grade. His body was surrounded by thick Khanate Taoist rhymes and exuded the unique pressure of a Khanate cardinal treasure. The Khanate cardinal treasure, the 18th grade creation Green Lotus. Cut! Seeing this, Xianqing used the shadow of the past as a blade and slashed at the 18th grade creation Green Lotus. Whoosh, an invisible blade slashed past, and the 18th grade creation Green Lotus lost 6 grades and turned back into a 12th grade creation Green Lotus. After the 6 petals spun in the air for a while, they suddenly turned into a man in green who looked 80% similar to Xianqing. At the same time, a 12th grade creation Green Lotus bloomed slowly on top of his head, exuding the pressure of a top-grade Khanate spiritual treasure. This was Xianqing's past body. Poor Wei Green Lotus. Greetings to me. Green Lotus stepped forward and bowed to Xianqing. Xianqing nodded and kept it in the human flower, using his own great Tao to improve his cultivation. The past body had just been born. However, with Daluo Jinxian's cultivation, improving his cultivation was the main goal now. Otherwise, it would be difficult to use it. After that, Xianqing began to close his eyes and rest. Condensing the past body had consumed a lot of his mind. Next, there was still a present body to condense. If he did not recover quickly, it would be a little funny if he could not cut out the incarnation. In the blink of an eye, several years had passed. The 12th grade creation Green Lotus had transformed into the 18th grade again. The 12th grade White Lotus of Purification and the 12th grade Black Lotus of Destruction had been completely devoured by the creation Green Lotus, and there was no trace of their existence. In this regard, Xianqing did not feel that it was a pity. Using 2 supreme-grade Khanate spiritual treasures to exchange for a powerful Khanate cardinal treasure was not a loss. Cut! With a thought, Xianqing used his present body as a blade and slashed again. Whoosh! The 18th grade creation Green Lotus returned to the 12th grade. The 6 petals that had been cut off turned into Xianqing's present body. Yes. His aura, appearance, strength, and so on were exactly the same as his past body. It was just a little more mature. Of course, he was more mature now than before. At this point, Xianqing's breakthrough this time was over. The Black Lotus of Destruction and the Black Lotus of Purification disappeared and turned into 2 creation Green Lotuses. This did not mean that their abilities had disappeared. Compared to the Khanate 4 Great Lotus Seats and the Khanate 5 Elements flag, the creation Green Lotus was the legitimate son of the Chaos Green Lotus and had inherited everything. In other words, the creation Green Lotus could use all their abilities. Clang! As Xianqing completed his breakthrough, the Hongmeng Daozhong broke through the void and quietly returned to Feng Zichen's hand. The realm of the late stage of the Sage-to-Be realm has barely touched the threshold of the Great Medium. In the Untainted Land, it is considered a moderate master. Xianqing said with a smile after testing his skyrocketing strength. Only when one's strength reached this level could he be considered to have squeezed into the top level of the Untainted Land. He was no longer a chess piece and had the qualifications to play chess. In the Untainted Land, those in the early and middle stages of the Sage-to-Be realm were called Great Medium. Those in the late stage of the Sage-to-Be realm and above were called Great Medium. Those who had just entered the Sage-to-Be realm were at the early stage of the Sage-to-Be realm. Killing 1 corpse was at the middle stage of the Sage-to-Be realm. Killing 2 corpses was at the late stage of the Sage-to-Be realm. Killing 3 corpses was at the peak of the Sage-to-Be realm. The 3 corpses were connected and were half-step to the primordial chaos. When the 3 corpses were combined, one could achieve the Tao and become the primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. I finally deduced it. Under the Tree of World. Feng Zichen let out a long sigh of relief. He, who was in charge of guarding the Tree of World, was not idle when others were busy. He was deducing the blood altar. With the help of the Tree of World, the creation Jade Disc Fragment, and the Hongmeng Daozhong, Feng Zichen spent 1,000 years and finally deduced the blood altar, which could be said to be in defiance of the natural order. It was not easy to say that the appearance of this divine power was really not easy. The Tree of World was called the first spiritual root in the Untainted Land and had supreme mystery. It was easier to get close to the Great Medium if one cultivated under the tree. The creation Jade Disc was known as the origin of all Taos. The Hongmeng Daozhong could improve one's comprehension. With the power of these 3, coupled with Feng Zichen's identity as the great Taoist priest, it was not an exaggeration to say that his comprehension was the best in the Untainted Land. Even the Tao ancestor could not compare to him. Even so, Feng Zichen had experienced several failures before he deduced it. Could be seen how difficult it was. That was true. Bringing the dead back to life. It was against the laws of the heavenly Tao and was destined to be tolerated by heaven and earth. Note: the dead here refers to the kind whose true spirit is broken, not the kind whose soul has entered the cycle of reincarnation. Logically speaking, the blood sacrificial altar shouldn't exist. Even if it appeared, it would be destroyed by the heavenly Tao immediately. However, Feng Zichen chose a good time. In the current untainted land, even the chaos fiend god dared to swagger around. What was one more heaven-defying technique? Of course, in order to prevent the heavenly Tao from settling scores when it returned to the untainted land, the blood altar would be erased from the world. Feng Zichen still had to add insurance to the blood altar so that the heavenly Tao would recognize the existence of this technique. Chapter 564. Feng Zichen also had a countermeasure. It was actually very simple to let the blood altar be recognized by the heavenly Tao. That was to let the blood altar appear and benefit the primordial world. In the vast primordial world, as long as it was something beneficial to the primordial world, regardless of whether it was good or evil, heaven-defying or not, it would definitely be protected by the heavenly Tao. Therefore, as long as the blood altar appeared and could benefit the primordial world, the heavenly Tao would not care about its heaven-defying nature. To the heavenly Tao, the most important thing was to think of all ways to increase the origin of the primordial world. His actions in the primordial world were all based on this. For this, he could sacrifice everything. He could even tolerate the chaos fiend god, so what was a small blood altar? As for how to make the blood altar a treasure that was beneficial to the primordial world, Feng Zichen already had a plan in his heart. The altar had the intention to communicate with the world. According to Feng Zichen's plan, he would first use the blood altar to communicate with the world and then offer enough sacrifices. A portion of it would be used to give back to the world, and a portion would be used to summon the dead. In this way, the world would benefit and would not care about the resurrection of the dead. Without the obstruction of the heavenly Tao, the blood altar could successfully summon the dead. Simply put, this was a bribe to get the world to let go. This method could be said to be a win-win situation. The heavenly Tao had no reason to reject it. However, there was one thing that was more difficult. It was how to choose the sacrifice to the world. Since it was a sacrifice to the world, it definitely could not be an ordinary item. It had to be a spiritual item that could increase the origin of the world. Otherwise, if you offered the sacrifice but the heavenly Tao did not obtain any benefits, it would be strange if it did not kill you. Moreover, the sacrifice could not be a spiritual item in the primordial world. That was because everything in the primordial world belonged to the heavenly Tao. You sacrificed the heavenly Tao's own things to the heavenly Tao and still wanted to obtain benefits. Wasn't this a joke? The heavenly Tao was really easy to talk to. Bribery was also a skill. It had to be catered to. In particular, the one to bribe was the heavenly Tao. He had to study it carefully. Otherwise, if something went wrong, he would really die. The heavenly Tao. Since spiritual items from the great desolate world were not enough, he could only start from the outer realm. There were treasures everywhere in the great chaos. Even the chaotic chi that could be seen everywhere was considered a good treasure in the untainted land. If Feng Zichen could calm down and go to the great chaos to collect tens of thousands of years of chaos chi, it would be enough to offer it to the heavenly Tao. With this as a sacrifice, he would be able to summon at least one Daluo Jingxian through the blood altar. However, that was in the past. The current primordial world had ready-made offerings. There were so many Xiantian ferocious beasts. Weren't they living sacrifices? Khanate ferocious beasts were the result of the fusion of the chaos fiend god's remnants, the origin of chaos, and a part of the chaos fiend chi. It did not belong to the primordial world. Therefore, they could be used as sacrifices to the heavenly Tao to strengthen the origin of heaven and earth. Xiantian realm ferocious beasts were not simple. When they were alive, they took it as their duty to destroy the primordial world. When they died, they would not let go of the primordial world. After they died, the chaotic chi on their bodies did not dissipate. Instead, it slowly spread out and eroded the surrounding spiritual veins and earth chi. It destroyed the surrounding life force and turned it into a dangerous place. It was really sinister. Feng Zichen discovered that by chance. Originally, Feng Zichen thought that this batch of Xiantian realm ferocious beasts would be the same as the previous ones. After they died, their origins would slowly dissipate and gradually integrate into heaven and earth to strengthen the origin of the primordial world. However, tens of thousands of years later, Feng Zichen suddenly realized that something was wrong. Not only did the spiritual qi in the primordial world not increase, but it was gradually decreasing. That was unreasonable. It was very unreasonable. That was because, logically speaking, after years of war, many Xiantian realm ferocious beasts had died, and the cultivators of the 10,000 races had suffered heavy casualties. After tens of thousands of years, their origins should have merged with the primordial world. Therefore, the spiritual qi in the primordial world should have increased. However, the strange thing was, the spiritual qi did not increase but decreased. It would be strange if there was no problem. So many living beings had died in the primordial world. It was impossible for their origins to disappear for no reason. After every great calamity, the primordial world would usher in a flourishing age of cultivation. It was because hundreds of millions of living beings had died and their origins had returned to heaven and earth, causing the origin of the primordial world to increase greatly and benefit the countless living beings who were still alive. In the current situation, someone must be up to no good. In the beginning, Feng Zichen thought that it was the demon sect who was secretly playing tricks, intercepting the origin that should have returned to heaven and earth to plot something big. However, after careful observation, he realized that this matter had nothing to do with the demon sect. It was the fault of the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts. After they died, the Xiantian realm ferocious qi did not disappear and continued to destroy the spiritual veins of the primordial world. The reason why no one noticed this was that a large number of living beings had died. Their origins had returned to heaven and earth, making up for the loss of the primordial world and covering up this point. It was not until tens of thousands of years later that Feng Zichen suddenly realized that something was wrong. Only then did he understand the truth. Xiantian realm ferocious beasts. They really did not let people rest in peace even after they died. However, thinking about it, the Chaos Fiend God was not a fool. They had sent the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts to the primordial world. Obviously, they were not airdropping resources to the primordial world, but to destroy the primordial world. If the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts died and their origins merged into the primordial world, wouldn't the actions of the Chaos Fiend God be meaningless? Therefore, they would definitely leave a secret hand on the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts to prevent such a thing from happening. After they died, they continued to destroy the primordial world. It was probably the secret hand left behind by the Chaos Fiend God. Since Feng Zichen had discovered this, he could not sit back and watch this situation continue to happen. After the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts died, their origins could not merge into the primordial world, right? That didn't matter. If you can't do it, I'll help you. The blood altar existed for this reason. It was equivalent to a converter, transforming the origins of the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts into the origins that were most suitable for heaven and earth to absorb. Using the flesh and blood of the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts to build the blood altar, and then using their origins as a sacrifice to the heavenly Tao to revive the experts who had fallen in the primordial world. This method was really making the best use of everything. In an instant, waste was turned into treasure, and the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts became delicious cakes. With a thought, Feng Zichen passed the refining method of the blood altar that he had deduced to the incarnation of the Gaochen and asked him to bring the demon god flag to find Fuxi. In the nether realm, the Gaochen had just received the demon god flag from the ghost emperor of Fengdu when he received the message from Feng Zichen. He did not have time to pay his respects to goddess Hutu and hurriedly left the nether realm to go to the ancestral land of the human race to find Fuxi. If he wanted to refine the blood altar as quickly as possible, he had to get Fuxi's help. After all, Fuxi now controlled the most powerful force in the primordial world. With his help, he could save a lot of time. Moreover, He could use the opportunity of refining the blood altar to kill the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts that were causing chaos in the primordial world and completely quell the chaos. Fellow Taoist Fuxi, I haven't seen you for many years. You've become more and more majestic. In the human emperor's palace, the Gaochen looked at Fuxi in front of him and could not help but say, although Fuxi's cultivation level was lower than his, the Gaochen vaguely felt suppressed by his aura when standing in front of him. Of course, this was also because the Gaochen deliberately suppressed the emperor's aura in his body. However, even so, it was enough to show how extraordinary Fuxi was. This meant that although Fuxi's cultivation level was only at the great perfection of the quasi-saint realm, his combat strength had reached the half-step primordial chaos level. And these were the benefits brought by being respected by all races. The strengthening of the power of all races made Fuxi's majesty even more profound. He was much more powerful than when Feng Zichen was the human emperor. Even when Fuxi was Emperor Shi in the demon race's heavenly court, he did not have such a scene today. He had surpassed the past and achieved something that he did not achieve in his previous life. Not to mention other things. Just Fuxi's majesty was enough to make ordinary quasi-saints not dare to attack him. From this, one could see how profound his majesty was. This was the scene of becoming an emperor. If Fuxi gained more prestige in the primordial world, he might be able to directly ascend to the position of emperor. Your majesty is too kind. It's all thanks to your majesty that Fuxi can have today. If your majesty had not given me the human Tao imperial seal, I would have died in the mouth of a connate ferocious beast, let alone command all races and unify the primordial world. Fuxi bowed respectfully to Feng Zichen and said gratefully, he was telling the truth. If not for the human Tao imperial seal, he would have died long ago. Even if he was fine, he would not be a match for a connate ferocious beast. You? Shaking his head, Feng Zichen was a little speechless. His contribution was not as great as Fuxi said. Even if he did not make a move that day, Fuxi would be fine. How could a person of destiny die so easily? If Feng Zichen did not save him, there would be others who would. Moreover, Fuxi could have today mostly because of his own ability. Otherwise, do you think anyone with a connate cardinal treasure would be able to create such a situation? The human Tao imperial seal indeed had an indelible contribution to Fuxi's current status. However, it would be a little too much to say that it was all his credit. Feng Zichen naturally understood this point. All right, I came to see you today not to catch up with you, but to ask for your help. After cutting off his messy thoughts, Feng Zichen said to Fuxi with a solemn expression, Please speak, your majesty. As long as Fuxi can do it, I will not refuse. Seeing that Feng Zichen was talking about serious matters, Fuxi also became serious and promised him, It's not a difficult matter. Next, Feng Zichen told Fuxi about the blood altar and the plan to lure the connate ferocious beast with the demon god flag. Blood altar? Bring the dead back to life? Demon god flag? Can lure connate ferocious beasts? After hearing Feng Zichen's words, Fuxi fell into a great shock. With the memories of his 2 lives, he had never seen such a mysterious magic and magic treasure. He could still understand luring connate ferocious beasts. However, the magic that could bring the dead back to life, which obviously violated the rules of the way of heaven, was said by Feng Zichen so openly. He could not understand. This kind of magic was really too heaven-defying. How could the way of heaven allow his existence? That was to say, the way of heaven was not in the primordial world now. Otherwise, based on what Feng Zichen had said just now, the way of heaven could directly strike down a bolt of purple heaven divine thunder and erase all his memories of the blood altar. Why, you don't believe me? Seeing Fuxi's face full of disbelief, Feng Zichen smiled proudly and then explained the principle to him. Deducing the blood altar was another great feat of Feng Zichen after he established the connate sword principle. He could not help but have some thoughts of showing off. This method was really too heaven-defying. It was equivalent to giving Daluo Jinxian an extra life. If it really spread in the primordial world, the impact would be far-reaching. It would be enough to subvert everyone's understanding and make the chaotic future even more chaotic. Perhaps, the structure of the primordial world would be changed. Even the birth of the Khanate sword principle would not have as great an impact as the appearance of the blood altar. After all, the Khanate sword principle was only used at the bottom of the primordial world. To the upper echelons of the primordial world, it was dispensable. However, the blood altar was different. Its main target was the upper echelons of the primordial world. In this day and age, other than saints, who dared to guarantee that they would never die? Didn't you see that the invincible Donghuang Tai still died? With the blood altar, they would have an extra way out. When they started, they would have more confidence. I see. Your Majesty is really a great talent. He is far from what Fuxi can compare to. After hearing Feng Zichen's explanation, Fuxi looked at him with admiration. He was convinced. He was really convinced. He could even think of such a method. No wonder he could establish the Khanate sword principle and become the only Taoist priests of the primordial world. Fellow Taoist, do you think this method is feasible? Feng Zichen smiled and asked Fuxi. The current blood altar was only perfect in theory. Feng Zichen felt that the blood altar could succeed, but only he felt that it could. As for whether it could really succeed, no one could guarantee it without practice. After all, the theory was perfect. That was only in theory. Only by practicing could one obtain true knowledge. There's no problem in theory. After thinking carefully, Fuxi said, according to Feng Zichen's idea, there was no reason for the blood altar to fail. As for whether it can really succeed, won't we know after giving it a try? Both of them were practical people. After thinking about it, they felt that the plan was feasible. Without hesitation, they began to implement it. If there was really a problem with the two of them around, there was no need to be afraid of any trouble. On the contrary, they could deal with it on the spot and find the reason for the problem so that they could further improve the plan. Next, Feng Zichen and Fuxi started to get busy. One was exploring the terrain, looking for suitable terrain to set up traps to kill the Khanate ferocious beasts. The other was deducing the formation so that he could increase his killing power to the extreme, so that he could kill the Khanate ferocious beasts faster. In the blink of an eye, the world changed. 10,000 years passed in a blink of an eye. During this period, many major events happened in the untainted land. First of all, there was bad news. In order to practice the formation, Fuxi ordered the human clan and the Khanate 10,000 clans to shrink their forces. As a result, the Khanate ferocious beasts became more and more rampant in the untainted land. Even the 4 ferocious beasts that had died long ago were resurrected. They were more powerful than before and had reached the late stage of sage-to-be. Of course, this was not the worst news. The worst news was that after tens of thousands of years, the battle of possession between the Chaos Fiend God and the great medium of the untainted land had gradually come to an end. As soon as those great medium came out of seclusion, they joined the demon sect. There was no doubt that these great medium of the untainted land were defeated and were successfully possessed by the Chaos Fiend God. Their identities, positions, magic treasures, and so on were all replaced by him. And there were as many as 6 great medium who were replaced by the Chaos Fiend God. This naturally had a great impact on the current situation of the untainted land. At the very least, the strength of the demon sect would increase greatly because of this. No matter what realm those great medium were at before they were possessed by the Chaos Fiend God. Anyway, after they were possessed and integrated with the remaining origin of the Chaos Fiend God, their strength was at least at the realm of Primordial Chaos Dalio-Jinxian. 6 masters comparable to Primordial Chaos Dalio-Jinxian joined the demon sect. How much would the strength of the demon sect expand? It was really scary just thinking about it. In this regard, Hao Yin and Lei Zhe could be said to have a deep understanding. Originally, when the two of them joined forces, it could be said that they were suppressing the demon sect, almost pressing the demon sect to the ground. Under their suppression, the demon gate almost planned to go from the light to the dark and hide in the dark again. Fortunately, at the critical moment, 6 Chaos Fiend gods comparable to Primordial Chaos Dalio-Jinxian arrived. At this time, it could be said that the situation had been reversed in the blink of an eye. Previously, Hao Yin and Lei Zhe were suppressing the demon sect, but now the demon sect was suppressing them. Hao Yin and Lei Zhe were naturally dumbfounded by this. This change came too quickly, so quickly that they didn't even have time to react. The great situation turned into nothing overnight. The grievances in their hearts were simply indescribable. However, even though they were grievances, the two of them weren't fools. Seeing that things couldn't be done, of course, they couldn't foolishly resist the 6 primordial chaos experts of the demon sect. Finding an opportunity, he immediately retreated. In this regard, the 6 chaos fiend gods didn't chase after them, because it was meaningless. When one's strength reached their level, either the difference in strength was too great, or they had set up all kinds of killing methods in advance. Otherwise, if they wanted to leave, they would definitely not be able to stop them. Moreover, in a one-on-one battle, none of the 6 of them was a match for the 2 heaven and earth supremes. If they chased after them, it would be hard to say who would kill who. Therefore, when the 6 primordial chaos experts of the demon sect saw the 2 of them leave, they directly let them go and didn't stop them at all. Of course, since there was bad news, that meant that there was also good news. The good news was that there were only 6 great masters who had been possessed. The remaining great masters were still in a stalemate with the chaos fiend gods. This was really good news. In this battle of possession, the great masters had the home advantage. The longer the battle dragged on, the more advantageous it was for them, and the greater their chances of winning. In other words, at this time, the great masters who had not been possessed by the chaos fiend gods had the possibility of being possessed by the chaos fiend gods in the future. Although it was not impossible, it was extremely slim. Chapter 565. Perhaps, after a period of time, those great divines would come out of seclusion one after another. By then, even if Tian Dao and the 6 sages had not returned, the demon sect would not be able to make any waves with their strength. The situation would be completely rewritten. However, all of this was based on the fact that Feng Zichen and the others could block the desperate attacks of the demon sect. Even Feng Zichen could predict the future situation of the untainted land. The demon sect had a deep foundation, so how could they not have predicted it? Therefore, when the experts of the demon sect saw that the situation was reversed, they would either hide again and wait for the future, or they would take advantage of the situation before it was reversed to fight for a bright future. If the demon sect chose the former, it would be fine. If the demon sect chose the latter, then Feng Zichen and the others, who were still active in the untainted land, would definitely be the thorn in the side of the demon sect. They would definitely be destroyed. However, judging from the character of the demon sect, the possibility of choosing the latter was undoubtedly higher. Therefore, the clearer the future situation of the untainted land was, the crazier the demon sect's next actions would be, and the more dangerous the situation of Feng Zichen and the others would be. They would face the terrorist attacks of the demon sect. Of course, in addition to the good news and bad news, there was also a piece of news that was neither good nor bad. That was, after Hao Yin escaped from the hands of the 6 primordial chaos experts of the demon sect, he was really angry and wanted to roar to the sky. Coincidentally, at this moment, the 4 ferocious beasts that had just been resurrected passed by this place and bumped into the angry Hao Yin. Then things were much simpler. Hao Yin, who was already angry, vented all his anger on the 4 ferocious beasts. Now, the 4 ferocious beasts that had just been resurrected had been killed by Hao Yin before they could show their majesty in the untainted land. Although these 4 Khanate ferocious beasts were the kings of the Khanate ferocious beasts and had the strength of the great perfection of the sage-to-be. However, Hao Yin had the battle strength of the 5th level of the primordial chaos when he used all his strength. How could the 4 ferocious beasts be his match? It was normal to be beaten to death. It would be abnormal if they could not be killed. It could only be said that the 4 ferocious beasts were unlucky to encounter the furious Hao Yin. However, this was not good news. The fall of the 4 great savage beasts was a heavy blow to the Khanate-level savage beasts. However, the 4 great ferocious beasts had some of the characteristics of the saints, and they were immortal and indestructible. It wouldn't be long before it would be revived, and it would be even more powerful than before. In other words, the 4 great ferocious beasts could not be killed. They could only be sealed. If he killed them, he would be able to obtain temporary stability, but the consequences would be endless. Therefore, Hao Yin killing the 4 great ferocious beasts was neither good nor bad news. At the very least, after the fall of the 4 great beasts, the power of the Xian Tian ominous beasts had been weakened to a certain extent. This had bought a little breathing space for all living beings, and also facilitated the implementation of Feng Zichen's plan. After all, the 4 great ferocious beasts were the only ones among the Xiantian ferocious beasts that possessed intelligence and were born with the ability to control Xiantian ferocious beasts. If they were allowed to live, half of the demon god flag in Feng Zichen's hands would be wasted, which would cause an inexplicable change in his plan. Therefore, for Feng Zichen, the 4 great ferocious beasts were bound to die. If he had been by Hao Yin's side at that time, he would definitely have said to Hao Yin, "Well done. Too many things could happen in 10,000 years." Feng Zichen's plan was almost perfect. A suitable area and a powerful Xian Tian formation had been prepared. Now, what was left was to attract the Xian Tian ominous beasts to activate the formation. In the south of the untainted land, in a mysterious canyon, Feng Zichen, Hao Yin, and most of the masters above Daluo Jingxian from the Xian Tian tribes were busy preparing for the next plan to kill the Xian Tian ominous beasts. "Your Majesty, this place is really good." Fuxi looked at the canyon and said to Feng Zichen beside him, "Of course, I searched for tens of thousands of years in the untainted land before I found such a treasure." Feng Zichen said proudly, "This place was hidden and big enough. Moreover, it had all the 5 elements spiritual meridians and was in harmony with heaven and earth. There was a faint trend of forming a large formation that could accommodate sage-to-be masters to fight. With a little modification, it could become a treasure for evil people. Let's stop chatting. Let's hurry up and set up the formation." Anxious to verify the effect of the blood altar, Feng Zichen did not dare to delay. He hurriedly pulled Fuxi to set up the formation. This time, they were not going to set up the primordial river formation, but the galaxy cosmic light formation. Although the primordial river formation was strong, the galaxy cosmic light formation was obviously more powerful. As for the Dharma treasures to set up the galaxy cosmic light formation, they were all ready-made. In the past, the Demon Clan had refined 364 cosmic star banners in order to set up the cosmic star formation. In order to refine these cosmic star banners, the Demon Clan had almost exhausted all their resources. Naturally, the effect was also gratifying. Without exception, these cosmic star banners were all postnatal absolute treasures. Moreover, they were all top-notch postnatal absolute treasures. Their power was not inferior to ordinary innate spirit treasures. Because of these cosmic star banners, the Demon Clan had completely mastered Zhouxing and became the 2nd largest clan in the Eldritch world, second only to the Wizard Clan. Hundreds of thousands of years later, the battle between the Liches and the demons broke out. The Zhouxing formation and the 12 divine beings formation cancelled each other out and shattered at the same time. Zhouxing suffered a heavy blow because of this. However, the cosmic star banners on it were preserved because of the protection of the cosmic demon gods. Although they were all injured, they were clearly in a better state than the heavenly stellar cycle. After that, the cosmic demon gods sacrificed themselves and turned into the gate of witchcraft. The cosmic star banners were left in the boundless starry sky. Originally, these cosmic star banners should have been taken away by the 10 great demon gods who were still alive to become the foundation of the Demon Clan. However, the sudden birth of the great Emperor of Ziwei and his near-invincible power shocked everyone in the Eldritch world. As such, the 10 great demon gods did not dare to take away these precious treasures that were related to the fate of the boundless starry sky in front of him. Wouldn't that be forcing him to kill the demons? As such, these cosmic star banners fell into the hands of Feng Zichen. The cosmic star banners contained part of the Zhouxing's origin. Any formation related to Zhouxing could be set up with them. Not only could they be used to set up the cosmic star formation, but they could also be used to set up the cosmic star formation. These 2 supreme formations required the same materials to set up the formations. They both relied on Zhouxing. The only difference was the concept of the Great Path and the Path of Operation. This created the fundamental difference between the 2 supreme formations. One by one, the cosmic star banners flew out from Feng Zichen's hands and accurately landed on the ground in a position that corresponded to Zhouxing's position. these cosmic star banners. Beside him, Fuxi, who was helping Feng Zichen set up the cosmic star formation, could not help but reveal a puzzled expression when he saw the cosmic star banners flying out from Feng Zichen's hands. These cosmic star banners were somewhat different from the ones he had seen in the demon race in his previous life. The Khanate spiritual opportunity surged around him. It seemed more mysterious and powerful than before. It did not seem like an acquired item but more like an Khanate spiritual treasure. It was as if it had been upgraded as a whole. Its quality had increased by a level. Don't worry, Taoist Fuxi. I borrowed these cosmic star banners from Taoist brother Ziwei. There won't be any problems. Seeing Fuxi's puzzled expression, Feng Zichen turned his head and explained. Ever since the demon race massacred humans, almost all the great divines in the primordial world knew that the great Taoist priests, Feng Zichen, and great Emperor Ziwei were good friends who had fought against the demon race together. With this relationship, there was no problem at all for him to learn the cosmic star formation from great Emperor Ziwei and borrow the cosmic star banners. He did not have to worry about attracting suspicion from others. It was because of this that Feng Zichen dared to use the cosmic star formation without worrying about others suspecting his relationship with great Emperor Ziwei. It was just that it seemed a little strange for him to call himself Taoist brother. It's nothing. It's just that the power of these cosmic star banners seems to be stronger than before. I'm a little curious. Fuxi thought about it and said directly, "Oh, Taoist brother, you don't know about this. The original cosmic star banners were severely damaged after the battle with the liches and demons. Some of them can't even be used anymore. For this reason, Taoist brother Ziwei did not hesitate to refine them again. It's only natural that their quality has improved. Otherwise, how could he be worthy of the price that Taoist brother Ziwei paid?" Feng Zichen explained with a smile. Thinking about the price that he had paid to refine the cosmic star banners, he felt a little heartache. However, the effect was naturally excellent. The power of these cosmic star banners had all improved. Their quality even showed signs of transforming into Khanate spiritual treasures. This was a reversal from an acquired item to an Khanate item. And the reason for all this was that Feng Zichen had inserted all the Khanate star banners into Zhouxing's star core. Zhouxing was reborn from the destruction, which was equivalent to being reborn. In addition, God Pangu had been breathing in the chaotic qi, which gradually strengthened Zhouxing's origin. This allowed Zhouxing to be rejuvenated and have the ability to nurture Khanate spiritual treasures. Feng Zichen took advantage of this point and inserted the cosmic star banners into the star core. With the Khanate Taoist rhyme produced by Zhouxing, he nurtured the cosmic star banners again and achieved the goal of transforming them into Khanate spiritual treasures. Hundreds of thousands of years had passed. Although the cosmic star banners had not completely transformed into Khanate spiritual treasures, their quality had greatly improved. Their power had increased a lot, and they even had a trace of Khanate Taoist rhyme. Now, Feng Zichen took them out to verify the results of the nurturing over the years and see if it was worth his continued investment. If the power of the cosmic star banners satisfied him, he would increase his investment and strive to transform the cosmic star banners into Khanate spiritual treasures as soon as possible. TSK, TSK, TSK. 365 cosmic star banners at the level of Khanate spiritual treasures. That scene was exciting just thinking about it. If they were to operate at full strength, how terrifying would their power be? At the very least, it was stronger than in the hands of the demon clan. Moreover, if all the cosmic star banners in Feng Zichen's hands transformed into Khanate spiritual treasures, he could prove a point to all living beings in the primordial world. He was better than Dijun, he was more outstanding, he was more qualified to become the lord of the boundless starry sky. He could do whatever Dijun could do. What Dijun couldn't do, he could do. The second generation was stronger than the first generation. He could better replace Dijun in the hearts of all living beings. As for how to be stronger than Dijun, Feng Zichen had already done it. When the demon clan ruled the boundless starry sky, they only controlled 364 Zhouxing stars. They lacked the crucial Ziwei star. Feng Zichen, on the other hand, controlled all the Zhousing stars, and completely unified the boundless starry sky. The 365 main stars of the heavenly cycle all had to listen to his orders. Just this point alone made him stronger than Dijun. The grade of Ziwei is really extraordinary. After a moment of silence, Fuxi praised from the bottom of his heart. The cosmic star banners were jointly refined by him and Dijun. Back then, after they had refined the heavenly cycle star banner, they had tried everything they could but were unable to advance it. At that time, they felt that the cosmic star banners had been deduced to the limit and had reached a point where there was no way to improve it. However, they did not expect to see an even more advanced cosmic star banners from the new lord of the boundless starry sky today. This was undoubtedly a huge blow to Fuxi, because this meant that he was inferior to the other party. If that was not the case, why would the cosmic star banners that could not improve in his hands be improved in the hands of others? This was clearly a sign of inferiority. Of course, I am extremely impressed by Brother Ziwei's wisdom. After hearing Fuxi's praise, Feng Zichen agreed shamelessly. Then, Feng Zichen explained the cosmic star banners to Fuxi as he threw in the cosmic star banners. Not long after, the vast cosmic star banners array was formed in the hands of the two. They only needed to wait for Feng Zichen to communicate with Zhousing and attract the power of the stars to activate the array. Your Majesty, the cosmic star banners array has been formed. Should we start the plan and use the demon god flags to summon the innate stage beasts and kill them in one fell swoop? Fuxi said after the array was set up. No rush. This matter is not urgent. Feng Zichen shook his head and said, although the cosmic star banners array is powerful, this place is not the boundless starry sky after all. Without the home advantage, the power of this array cannot be maximized. And we don't know much about the strength of the innate stage beasts. How many beasts are there? How many of them are Daluo Jinxian? How many quasi-sages are there? We have no idea at all. In addition, the demon sect may not stand by and watch if they see us scheming against the innate stage beasts. They might even help. We have to consider all of the above. With that, Feng Zichen turned to look at Fuxi and said seriously, the cosmic star banners array is not enough. So, a single cosmic light formation is completely insufficient. For the sake of safety, we have to set up a few congenital formations to prevent any accidents. Next, I will go to the center of the canyon to set up another supreme formation. Fellow Taoist, you will go to the periphery and set up your primordial chaos river array. There were so many innate stage beasts and they were so strong. How could an imperfect cosmic star banners array be enough? Chapter 566. Perhaps the array would be broken after being attacked a few times by the innate ferocious beasts. He had to be on guard. For this reason, Feng Zichen did not intend to implement the plan with one array from the beginning. He wanted to set up several arrays to form a huge chain array and completely cut off the vitality of the innate ferocious beasts. If he killed the innate ferocious beasts so easily, was he looking down on the demon sect or the chaos demon god? It should be known that the current situation was on the demon sect, not on Feng Zichen. He was going against the general trend, so it was not too much to be careful. Feng Zichen had been winning all the time. That was because he could not afford to lose. The demon sect had the general trend. Even if they lost, they could start again. That was the reason why the demon sect had been suppressed by Feng Zichen and the others, but their power did not weaken. Instead, they became stronger and stronger. That was because they had the general trend. However, if Feng Zichen lost, he would really suffer a crushing defeat and would have no chance to make a comeback. That was the price of going against the general trend. He could only keep moving forward and could not retreat. After instructing Fuxi, Feng Zichen asked him to go to the periphery to set up the array, while he walked to the center of the canyon to set up the trump card that he had specially prepared for this plan. The 12 Divine Beings formation. That's right. It was the number 1 innate array in the primordial world. Feng Zichen planned to set up the 12 Divine Beings formation in the center of the canyon, in the deepest part of the galaxy of cosmic light array. In this way, even if the galaxy of cosmic light array and the primordial river formation were broken by the innate ferocious beasts, he could still rely on the 12 divine beings' formation to make a comeback and kill all the invaders. Since the innate ferocious beasts were afraid of the chaos demon god, they were naturally extremely afraid of Pangu, who made the chaos demon god fear. Feng Zichen did not believe that those innate ferocious beasts could still exert their full strength after sensing Pangu's aura. At the very least, he had to give them a 50% discount. Go! In the center of the canyon, Feng Zichen waved his sleeves, and 12 long banners flew out. They grew in the wind, and in the blink of an eye, they became tens of thousands of feet long. Then they disappeared into the void. These 12 banners were the 12 heavenly god banners. It was because of them that Feng Zichen had the confidence to set up the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation. Otherwise, did he really think that the number 1 Khanate formation of the Great Desolate World was so easy to set up? After the fall of the 12 ancestors of sorcery, even the sorcerer tribe could not set up the 12 capital god banner formation. From this, one could see how difficult it was to set up a formation. The 12 divine beings formation of 12 divine beings was closely related to the 12 grand shamans, and was the foundation of the formation. Without the 12 grand sorcerers, there would be no 12 divine beings killing formation. Fortunately, back then, Feng Zichen had specially refined the Dutian divine aura for the 12 ancestors of sorcery, using it as their natal spiritual treasure to carry on their path. After the fall of the 12 ancestors of sorcery, they could set up the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation again, allowing the number 1 Khanate formation of the Great Desolate World to reappear in the world. Back then, when the canopy of heaven was broken, the 12 ancestors of sorcery sacrificed themselves to mend the canopy of heaven. Their origins turned into the gate of sorcery, and they disappeared from the Great Desolate World. However, as their natal spiritual treasure, the Dutian divine banner was not sacrificed together with them. Instead, it was kept and taken away by Feng Zichen. The function of this treasure was not as simple as setting up the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation. Its main function was to condense the origins of the 12 ancestors of sorcery to help them revive. The reason why the 12 ancestors of sorcery chose the Dutian divine fiends as their natal spiritual treasure was not only that their attributes were compatible, but more importantly, they had noticed this point. The natal spiritual treasure was so important. If not, why would they choose the Dutian divine banner, which was only a Khanate magic treasure at that time, as their natal spiritual treasure to carry the great Tao? This time, it settled. Looking at the 12 capital heaven divine banners in the void, Feng Zichen could feel the terrifying power contained in them. He could not help but nod his head in satisfaction. With the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation, even a master of the origin would lose half his life if he was not careful. He could even be refined to death directly. The number 1 formation in the Great Desolate World was not a boast. It was built with fresh blood. After doing all this, Feng Zichen turned and left. He went to the periphery of the canyon to help Fuxi set up the Hunyuan River formation. Setting up the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation was not as complicated as setting up the galaxy cosmic light formation. He only needed to throw out the 12 capital heaven divine banners and they could form the formation spontaneously. The function of the capital heaven divine banner was like a formation plate. It was very convenient to use. Therefore, he did not spend much time setting up the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation. Of course, such a precious treasure fell into the hands of Feng Zichen. He was not completely free of cost. Since he used the 12 capital heaven divine banners, he had to bear the corresponding karma and try his best to revive the 12 ancestors of sorcery. In this regard, Feng Zichen was happy to see it happen. The 12 ancestors of sorcery were his most solid allies. They had helped him a lot on the path of cultivation. Even without the capital heaven divine banner, Feng Zichen would revive them after the human clan stabilized their position as the protagonist of heaven and earth. This time, setting up a trap to kill the Khanate ferocious beasts. This was an opportunity. Feeding a portion of the Khanate ferocious beasts' flesh and blood essence to the 12 capital heaven divine banners. Although it could not make the 12 ancestors of sorcery return, it could greatly shorten their resurrection time. Time flowed like water. Unknowingly, 1,000 years had passed. On this day, Feng Zichen and Fuxi stood at the top of the canyon and quietly looked at the great desolate world. The plan to trap and kill the Khanate ferocious beasts was about to begin. The two of them seized the opportunity and jointly raised the demon god flag, activating its power to the limit. Rumble. In an instant, a supreme majesty that belonged to the chaos demon god spread out from the demon god flag and swept across the entire great desolate world. Roar! Roar! Roar under the supreme majesty of the chaos demon god. Most of the Khanate ferocious beasts seemed to have encountered an extremely terrifying existence. They could not help but crawl on the ground and roar in horror. At this time, not to mention the Khanate ferocious beasts, even the living beings in the great desolate world were shocked by the sudden appearance of the demon god's aura. They could not help but look around in horror, looking for the source of the change. At the same time, in the demon sect, this aura, what a familiar feeling. Just like the demon god flag. After sensing this majesty, the experts of the demon sect were first shocked, then puzzled. In the end, their faces could not help but change drastically as they recognized the origin of the demon god flag. Oh no! Someone wants to use the demon god flag to lure and kill the Khanate ferocious beasts. Go and destroy this treasure quickly. In a flash, the experts of the demon sect had already realized what had happened and guessed Feng Zichen's plan. Almost without any hesitation, several experts of the primordial chaos and several experts of the half-step primordial chaos broke through the space and rushed toward Feng Zichen and Fuxi. On the other side, Hao Yan Yao Qi and the others were also shocked by the sudden appearance of the demon god's aura. However, before he could react, Lei Zhe, who was beside him, grabbed him and flew in the direction of the canyon. If the primordial chaos experts of the demon sect attacked together, the three formations in the canyon alone would not be able to stop them. Therefore, Feng Zichen also needed some help. And Hao Yan was the best helper. Apart from the Tao ancestor, demon ancestor, saint, and the others, Hao Yan's fifth-level primordial chaos realm was the highest in the great desolate world. With his help, it was enough to hold back two primordial chaos experts of the demon sect. With the help of Gaochen, he could block 4 primordial chaos experts. Perhaps he could block 5 primordial chaos experts of the demon sect. After all, when the supremes of heaven and earth joined forces, it was not as simple as 1 + 1. It was summoning the mighty power of a true celestial emperor. The more supremes of heaven and earth there were, the more powerful they were. If the 5 supremes of heaven and earth came together, almost no one in the great desolate world could defeat them. When the primordial chaos experts of the demon sect rushed over, Feng Zichen and Fuxi were still activating the demon god flag, trying their best to spread its power to every corner of the great desolate world, so as to affect more Khanate ferocious beasts as much as possible. Hiss! 3 Tao Lords! Where did the demon sect get so many Tao Lords? Note: Tai Jingxian is a Tao Lord, Daluo Jingxian is a Taoist priest, and Primordial Chaos Daluo Jingxian is a Tao Lord. Seeing the 3 primordial chaos experts of the demon sect outside the canyon, Fuxi could not help but gasp. How could he fight 3 primordial chaos Tao masters? Ever since he reincarnated, Fuxi had first trained in the human race. Later, he had been competing with the 10,000 races of the great desolate world. And these forces belonged to the middle and bottom of the great desolate world. Because he had been dealing with them all year round, and his strength had not recovered to its peak, Fuxi had never stepped into the top circle of the great desolate world. This also caused Fuxi to gradually fall out of touch with the times. He did not know much about the changes in the great desolate world in recent years. For example, his impression of the great desolate world was still the ancient Lich Demon era. At that time, the great perfection of the sage-to-be was the peak. Half-step primordial chaos could transcend the world. As for primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian, in Fuxi's heart, he was still an extremely rare existence. However, he did not know that during the years he was struggling at the bottom, the great desolate world had undergone earth-shaking changes. Over the years, there were not many experts of the primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian realm. However, there were many experts whose combat strength had reached the primordial chaos realm. In short, the times had changed. Now, it was no longer the time when the great perfection of the sage-to-be could dominate the great desolate world. Now, if one wanted to shake the great desolate world, one's combat strength had to at least reach the primordial chaos realm. 3 primordial chaos Tao masters? It seems that the demon sect takes this matter seriously. With a glance, Feng Zichen saw that the demon sect had sent 3 primordial chaos Tao masters. He frowned slightly but did not pay too much attention to it. Although the 3 primordial chaos Tao masters were strong, if only 3 of them came, they would not be a match for Hao Tian and Lei Zhe. If this was the great chaos outside the realm, the 3 primordial chaos Tao masters could kill Hao Tian and Lei Zhe in one move. However, this was the great desolate world. Hao Tian and Lei Zhe were the supreme beings of heaven and earth. They had the home advantage and could be supported by the power of heaven and earth. Naturally, they were qualified to not take them seriously. Your Majesty, should we activate the array? Seeing that the 3 demon sect masters had entered the canyon and were rushing here quickly, Fuxi hurriedly asked Feng Zichen. If they did not act now, it would be too late. However, Fuxi was also a little worried. Could the array they had set up really stop the 3 primordial chaos Tao masters? They were the primordial chaos Tao masters, existences who could fight against saints. It's okay. Just focus on activating the demon god flag. There's no need to activate the array, and there's no need to worry about them. If they can't come over, someone will deal with them. Fuxi was extremely anxious, but Feng Zichen said indifferently, "Who is so strong that he can deal with the 3 primordial chaos Tao masters?" Hearing this, Fuxi was a little puzzled and shocked. The great desolate world. There were actually other primordial chaos experts. Why had he never heard of them before? TSK. He had been developing the human race in peace all these years. What exactly happened in the great desolate world? Why were there suddenly so many experts? Was this still the great desolate world that he was familiar with? Why were primordial chaos experts so worthless all of a sudden? They appeared like Khanate spirit treasures. Just as Fuxi was feeling puzzled, Hao Tian and Lei Zhe arrived. At this moment, at the peak of the canyon, there were 2 forces. On one side were Feng Zichen and Fuxi. On the other side were the 3 primordial chaos Tao masters of the demon sect. It was easy to distinguish who was a friend and who was an enemy. Although he did not know what Feng Zichen was doing, the situation at the scene was very obvious. The demon sect wanted to stop Feng Zichen's actions. Then things would be much simpler. I'll destroy everything that the demon sect wants to do, but I can't make them do as they wish. With this thought in mind, Hao Tian made his move. Kill. The word kill revealed Hao Tian's determination to kill. He used a killing move. The shadow of the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo heaven descended from the sky. It suppressed the 3 Tao masters of the demon sect. You're courting death. Sensing the danger, the 3 demons hurriedly turned around and used their supreme divine abilities to attack the shadow of the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo heaven. Boom! Terrifying fluctuations erupted. The shadow of the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo heaven was shattered by the supreme divine abilities of the 3 demons. Its remaining power was not extinguished and swept towards Hao Tian in a mighty manner. Demon, don't be arrogant. It was also at this moment that Lei Zhe's attack arrived. Terrifying tribulation lights shot out, destroying everything and shattering the aftermath of the divine abilities that surged towards Hao Tian. Just like that, the 5 of them began to fight in the void. Hao Tian and Lei Zhe were fighting 2 against 3, but they were still not at a disadvantage. They were even showing signs of suppressing the 3 demons. This forced the 3 demons to use all their strength to deal with it. They did not have any extra strength to destroy the demon god flag. That's Hao Tian? On the side, Fuxi looked at Hao Tian, who was unleashing his divine power, and said in disbelief. He did not know Lei Zhe, but how could he not know Hao Tian? This was too exaggerated. Who would have thought that a boy that no one cared about back then would be able to suppress the primordial chaos Tao master today? It was too unbelievable. What's there to be shocked about? No matter what, Hao Tian is the heavenly emperor personally conferred by the Tao ancestor. He has the support of the myriad Tao of heaven and earth. If he can't even suppress a third-level primordial chaos Tao master, then it's meaningless for him to be the heavenly emperor. Shaking his head and smiling, Feng Zichen explained to Fuxi. That's true. At this moment, Fuxi also noticed that although Hao Tian had the power to suppress the primordial chaos Tao master, his cultivation was still at the perfected sage-to-be. Chapter 567. Obviously, the power he had now was not from his own hard work, but from external forces. In this way, although it was still shocking, it was not so difficult to accept. Well, let's leave them alone. The power of the demon god flag is about to reach its limit, and it will soon attract the primordial ferocious beasts. That's what we should pay attention to. Just as Feng Zichen and Fuxi were talking, a loud roar came from the demon god flag. Then, a horrible demon god's shadow gradually materialized and appeared above the demon god flag. Fear. Great fear. The full power of the demon god flag was equivalent to the arrival of a complete chaos demon god. It was easy to imagine the impact it would bring to the untainted land. In an instant, the world darkened, and an indescribable oppression filled the world and attacked the hearts of all living beings. The power of the demon god was so vast and mighty that it appeared in the hearts of all living beings like a shadow. It was so oppressive that they could not speak. The world lost its sound and fell into absolute silence. In this absolute silence, Feng Zichen made his move. Start. He made a series of gestures with his hands and used his supreme divine sense to manipulate the demon god's shadow that had just appeared on the demon god flag to attract the endless primordial ferocious beasts in the untainted land. After Feng Zichen sent the seal into the demon god flag, the aura of the demon god's shadow gradually changed. It was no longer as oppressive as before. Instead, it emitted an indescribable fluctuation. Roar, roar, roar. The next moment, the demon god's shadow moved and let out a loud roar. Layers of ripples appeared in the void and spread in all directions, gradually affecting the whole untainted land. As the ripples spread, all the primordial ferocious beasts in the vicinity of the ripples seemed to have lost their minds and quickly ran toward the canyon. It was as if an invisible hand was manipulating them and making them converge in the direction of the demon god flag. Before long, the primordial ferocious beasts near the canyon had rushed over and were desperately rushing toward the demon god flag, where Feng Zichen and Fuxi were. Humph! Feng Zichen did not activate the formation, but snorted coldly. Boom! The void trembled as invisible ripples spread out. Those connate ferocious beasts that were rushing over were instantly turned into blood mist before they could even react. The power of a single snort was terrifying. How could mere connate ferocious beasts be a match for Feng Zichen, no matter how many of them there were? It could be said that as long as Feng Zichen wanted, he could kill all the primordial ferocious beasts in the untainted land in an instant. The might of primordial chaos was just that terrifying. This was a power that surpassed the laws. It was a power that truly belonged to the Tao. It was capable of wiping out the enemy in terms of concept and cognition. If one's strength did not reach this level, it would be very difficult to resist. The strongest connate ferocious beasts were only half-step primordial chaos. How could they resist this power? One had to know that Feng Zichen was not the only primordial chaos expert on his side. If the few of them attacked together, the Xiantian ferocious beast that roamed the desolate wilderness would definitely not be able to survive. But in this way, the price they had to pay was too great. It was very likely that all living beings in the primordial world would be buried with the connate ferocious beasts. The primordial world was not the great chaos of the outer realm. It had rules and a bottom line. No matter how experts fought, it would not be too much. However, if they attacked the low-level cultivators of the enemy, it would be a huge taboo. It would be easy to force the other party to fight to the death. Think about it. Feng Zichen and the others had just killed the connate ferocious beasts. Then, the demon sect would dare to fight to the death and kill all living beings in the primordial world. The reason why Feng Zichen and the others did not kill the Khanate ferocious beasts was because they were worried about this. However, the current situation was different. This was the Khanate ferocious beasts overestimating themselves and taking the initiative to attack Feng Zichen. Then they were killed by Feng Zichen. No one could find fault with it. As for setting up a trap to kill the Khanate ferocious beasts, this was using wisdom and not power that surpassed the rules. The demon sect could only pinch their noses and accept it. It was fine if they were not convinced. The demon sect could also come up with a plan to set up a trap to kill all living beings in the primordial world. In this way, even Feng Zichen and the others could not say anything. Oh no! Seeing the Khanate ferocious beasts rushing over, the three Taoist masters of the demon sect, who were fighting against Luais and Haoyan, could not help but change their expressions greatly. Then, they directly used their secret skills to inform the experts of the demon sect to come and help. If they did not come and help, Feng Zichen's plan would really succeed, and the Khanate ferocious beasts would be finished. This was a heavy blow to the demon sect. This is really annoying. After killing the Khanate ferocious beasts that rushed over again, Feng Zichen gradually became impatient. Then, he waved his sleeve and a transparent light curtain appeared, enveloping the whole canyon and blocking all the Khanate ferocious beasts that were attracted by the demon god flag outside the canyon. Now, there were still too few Khanate ferocious beasts, so it was not the best time to activate the array. Therefore, Feng Zichen did not activate the array, but let the Khanate ferocious beasts enter the canyon. However, under the attraction of the demon god flag, these Khanate ferocious beasts often rushed over recklessly. Although no matter how the Khanate ferocious beasts attacked, they could not hurt Feng Zichen at all, but the repeated attacks were inevitably annoying. For this reason, Feng Zichen set up a defense outside the canyon to prevent the Khanate ferocious beasts from entering the canyon. Of course, Feng Zichen did not forget his purpose. This defense was not invincible, and some of the Khanate ferocious beasts could still break it. Bang, 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 bang. The attraction of the demon god flag was too great. Even if they were blocked outside the canyon, those Khanate ferocious beasts still rushed into the canyon dauntlessly and desperately hit the defense, trying to break it. Unfortunately, with their current strength, they couldn't do that at all. More unfortunately, when more Khanate ferocious beasts were attracted by the demon god flag, they would have the power to break the defense of the canyon. It was time for the array to be activated. In other words, the array would be activated when the defense set up by Feng Zichen was broken by the Khanate ferocious beasts. At that time, the lives of the Khanate ferocious beasts would usher in the final countdown. As the aura of the demon god spread, a large number of Khanate ferocious beasts rushed from all over the untainted land and crazily attacked the boundary outside the canyon. Very good. Very good. I believe that after this, the remaining Khanate ferocious beasts will no longer have the ability to make waves in the untainted land. Looking at what was happening in front of him, Feng Zichen nodded to himself. Everything was going according to his imagination. Next, he would wait for the array to be activated and use the flesh and blood of the Khanate ferocious beasts to test the effect of the blood altar to see if it had the ability that he deduced. However, even if the blood altar failed this time, Feng Zichen would not lose out just by being able to kill all the Khanate ferocious beasts. You're courting death. Just as Feng Zichen was deep in thought, he suddenly felt a trace of disharmony in the void. Then, without thinking, he punched the void in front of him. Boom! Majestic divine power broke out. The heaven and earth trembled, and the universe shook. Large areas of the void were destroyed. A strange demonic shadow was blasted out of the void by Feng Zichen. The dignified demon god of chaos actually launched a sneak attack. What an eye-opener. Looking at the demonic shadow in front of him, Feng Zichen sneered coldly. This person actually wanted to take advantage of his unpreparedness to quietly destroy the demon god flag to destroy Feng Zichen's plan and rescue the Khanate ferocious beasts. It was really, how should he put it? If this was done by a master of the demon sect, Feng Zichen could completely understand. However, it was the demon god of chaos who launched the attack, which shocked Feng Zichen. The arrogant demon god of chaos actually launched a sneak attack, which was a despicable thing. He had really fallen. It seemed that after reincarnation, the demon god of chaos had lost not only his invincible power, but also his ingrained arrogance. Was the impact of losing his power so great? Back then, when the 3,000 demon gods of chaos fought Pangu, even though they knew that they were no match for him, they still went to fight him openly instead of using any sinister means. The difference between before and after was too great. Moreover, this was what worried Feng Zichen the most. What worried him the most was how to deal with the demon god of chaos in the future. When an expert had no bottom line, the difficulty of dealing with him would increase several times. From this moment on, Feng Zichen understood that he had to be careful when facing the demon god of chaos in the future. They began to use their brains. Of course, being on guard did not prevent Feng Zichen from mocking the demon god of chaos. Humph! Junior, what do you know? Strategy is also a kind of strength. The demon god of chaos's expression changed several times before he reluctantly snorted. In fact, the demon god of chaos did not want to do this. They were also forced. If his power was still there, why would he use such a despicable method like a sneak attack? He would have just flattened them. There was no other way. They, who had lost their invincible power, gradually remembered their forgotten minds. Then they began to use their wisdom. So much nonsense. After saying that lightly, Feng Zichen turned to Fushi and said, "You stay here and guard the demon god flag. I'll deal with them." As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Zichen raised the Zichen sword and rushed toward the demon god of chaos. At the same time, he did not forget to use the million sword illustration to trigger countless sword lights that swept toward the void in all directions. Humph! Humph! In the void, two muffled groans came one after another. Then, the countless sword lights were wiped out by two forces that suddenly surged out. Obviously, there were still two demon sect masters hiding in the surrounding void, ready to destroy the demon god flag at any time. However, at this moment they were forced out by Feng Zichen's sword. That was normal. After all, there were now 6 demon sect masters. It was because of this that Feng Zichen wanted to test them and attack the void. Sure enough, there was a problem with this test. Haha! My 2 fellow Taoists from the demon sect. Since you're here, why hide? Why don't you come with me to discuss Tao? As he spoke, Feng Zichen activated the million sword illustration with all his strength. Unparalleled sword intent burst out, enveloping the 3 of them and rushing toward Luais and Haotian. Although he was very confident in his strength, he did not think that he had the ability to fight against 3 demon sect masters alone. If there were 2 of them, he might be able to give it a try. However, there were 3 of them. Therefore, Feng Zichen planned to join forces with Luais and Haotian to deal with the demon sect masters together. In this way, although it was 3 against 6 with the support of the Celestial Emperor's power, they might not lose. Rumble. Feng Zichen and the other 3 joined the battlefield, causing the already intense battle to become even more intense. Even if only a trace of the aftermath of the battle between 9 primordial chaos Tao masters was leaked, it was enough to kill an ordinary sage to be. If it hit the Eldritch world, it would be destructive to the world. For this reason, the 9 of them moved the battlefield to the deepest part of the void to avoid affecting the Eldritch world. Among them, Feng Zichen and the other 2 were naturally worried about the Eldritch world. The 6 demon sect masters were naturally not so kind. The reason why they moved the battlefield was that they were afraid of affecting the Khanate ferocious beasts. One had to know that there were many Khanate ferocious beasts gathered outside the battlefield. If the aftermath was leaked, the Eldritch world would naturally not end well. However, those Khanate ferocious beasts would not end well either. This is tough. Let's join forces. In the depths of the void, after several rounds of fighting with the 6 primordial chaos Tao masters of the demon sect, Feng Zichen and the other 2 decided to join forces and summon the phantom of the real Celestial Emperor to kill the 6 in front of them in one fell swoop. Alright. The 3 of them looked at each other and reached a consensus. Then, they released their powers of the heavenly gods with all their might and let them merge in the air. Boom! Vast pressure pervaded the air. A blurry phantom of the Celestial Emperor appeared. Its entire body was enveloped by the projection of the eldritch world, releasing an extremely terrifying aura. However, compared to the last time when they dealt with demon ancestor Rahu, the power of the Celestial Emperor's phantom was much weaker this time because of the absence of Great Emperor Ziwei. It appeared even more blurry. Moreover, the eldritch world's phantom around him, apart from the netherworld that had yet to appear, even the boundless starry sky had disappeared without a trace. Its power had also fallen from the 12th level of the Primordial Chaos Tao Master to the 9th level of the Primordial Chaos Tao Master. Although it was still extremely powerful, it was much weaker than before. It was on a completely different level. However, even so, the 6 demon sect masters were far from being able to contend with it with their strength. Kill. The 3 of them controlled the Celestial Emperor's phantom and charged towards the 6 demon sect masters. However, Feng Zichen and the others had a joint attack method. As the reincarnation of the Chaos Demon God, how could the 6 demon sect masters not have a corresponding trump card? That's it? Is that all you've got? How dare you dream of killing us? You're really courting death. The 6 primordial chaos Tao masters of the demon sect were not afraid at all when they saw the Celestial Emperor's phantom. Instead, they sneered as if they did not take it seriously at all. Fellow Taoists, join forces to summon the will of chaos and kill them all. Let these eldritch world beings know that the majesty of the chaos demon gods is not to be offended. A chaos demon god looked at the 3 of them and said coldly, Chapter 568. Ha! The 6 chaos demon gods roared in unison and connected their auras to communicate with the will of chaos. Chaos demon gods were born from the creation of great Tao and chaos. It could be said that they were born with the ability to communicate with the will of chaos. This kind of power was not obvious on one chaos demon god, but if many chaos demon gods worked together, they could even attract the support of the will of chaos. And the more chaos demon gods there were, the stronger the support of the will of chaos would be. What's more, if hundreds of chaos demon gods worked together, they could totally summon the incarnation of Great Tao. If 3,000 chaos demon gods worked together, they could really summon the supreme Great Tao. In this way, who could be their opponent? This was a life-saving method left by the Great Tao and the will of chaos for chaos demon gods. Unfortunately, while this sort of technique was extremely powerful, it had a fatal weakness. It could only be effective on outsiders, but not on chaos demon gods who were of the same race. In this way, this supreme method was completely useless, because in the chaos era, chaos demon gods were only enemies of chaos demon gods. The other creatures of chaos living in the chaos did not even have the courage to look at chaos demon gods, let alone be their opponents. This was awkward. Although the life-saving method was invincible, there was no chance to use it. Pangu was also a member of Chaos Demon Gods. Therefore, during the tribulation of splitting open the sky, even if Chaos Demon Gods were in such a desperate situation, they could not use their life-saving method. Otherwise, thousands of Chaos Demon Gods worked together. They could directly summon the incarnation of Great Tao. Pangu might not be their opponent. Moreover, even if Pangu won, after the battle with the incarnation of Great Tao, he probably did not have the extra strength to split open the sky. Of course, the situation was completely different now. Because he was killed by Pangu, Chaos Demon Gods had no choice but to reincarnate into the untainted land, so they lost their origin and their strength fell greatly. This led to the invincible Chaos Demon Gods in the chaos to have worthy opponents. They were the great masters of the untainted land. At the same time, because the enemy was no longer Chaos Demon Gods, they could also use the life-saving method given by the Great Tao and the will of chaos. Boom! Following the actions of the 6 Chaos Fiend Gods, the outer realm of chaos also sensed something. In the depths of the primal chaos, where the origin of primal chaos was located and where the Great Tao lived in seclusion, there was suddenly some movement today. A summoning force was born from the void and connected with the will of chaos. In the next moment, the origin of chaos was boiling. Formless ripples spread out, causing great tremors in the depths of the chaos. Rumble. Boundless chaotic chi surged, setting off enormous tides in the chaos. Wave after wave, it created countless dangers and destroyed countless worlds floating in the chaos. At the same time, countless beasts living in the chaos and experts from unknown worlds all hid themselves, afraid that they would be affected by the chaos tide. The movement of the chaos origin could be said to have affected the entire situation, causing a huge impact on the endless chaos. Buzz, 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 amidst the boiling of the origin of chaos, an extremely ancient, mighty, and noble will slowly awakened. His greatness could not be described in words. His existence was completely incomprehensible. His antiquity could be traced back to the beginning of everything. If one really had to describe it with words, it would be that it was even more ancient, mighty, and noble than Pangu. This was the will of chaos, the embodiment of the entire chaos. To a certain extent, he could almost be compared to the Great Tao. He was the carrier of the Great Tao. He carried on the most perfect Great Tao. The awakening of the will of chaos naturally could not be hidden from his neighbor, the Great Tao. But the Great Tao did not react to this. The Great Tao was in action. It was really in action. For the Great Tao, existence was reason. He would not destroy the things that existed and would allow them to develop. Pangu was the same, the Chaos Fiend gods were the same, the primal chaos was the same, and all living beings in the primal chaos were the same. As the beginning, the source of everything, the product of nothing, the Great Tao was the most perfect. All imperfections were produced in contrast to his perfection. He contained everything, including the known and the unknown. Everything that existed was within the scope of his containment. In other words, apart from nothing, everything that existed was a part of the Great Tao. In this way, why would the Great Tao hurt him? The battle between the Chaos Fiend gods and the primal chaos was completely meaningless to him. Since that was the case, why would he interfere? The Great Tao was inaction. It was not the inaction of the Grand Pure One. It was the true inaction. Sensing the request of the Chaos Fiend gods, the will of chaos did not hesitate. It immediately separated a trace of power and transmitted it to the primal chaos through the connection to support the 6 Chaos Fiend gods. Although it was only a trace of power, it could not be underestimated. Because this trace of power belonged to the will of chaos. Even if this tiny bit of power was insignificant to him, that was only to the will of primal chaos. To others, this trace of power was something that they could not compare to even if they fought for their entire lives. The will of chaos was too strong, so strong that it was beyond imagination. A trace of his power was enough to allow the 6 Chaos Fiend gods to have power that was comparable to and beyond the primordial chaos. If this power was really transmitted to the 6 Chaos Fiend gods, then they would have the power to kill Feng Zichen and the other 2 in an instant. But unfortunately, the primal chaos was the primal chaos after all, not the chaos. It was protected by Pangu. Even if the will of chaos was very strong, the power it transmitted was only a trace of, and it could not threaten Pangu at all. Therefore, when this trace of power passed through the barrier of heaven and earth and reached the primal chaos, most of it was weakened by Pangu. It fell from the realm beyond the primordial chaos to the realm of the primordial chaos, and it was still weakening. And when this trace of power descended on the 6 Chaos Fiend gods, the support it brought to them only made their realm barely reach the 9th level of the primordial chaos. It was the same level as the Celestial Emperor's shadow condensed by Feng Zichen and the other 2. Both sides used their trump cards at the same time, making this evenly matched battle become evenly matched again. Suppress! The Celestial Emperor's shadow raised his hand, and the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven appeared and suppressed the Chaos Fiend gods. Rumble! The Celestial Emperor's attack was naturally different. The primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven summoned by him was very clear, as if it was real. It was countless times stronger than the one summoned by Hao Yin. Swish under the suppression of the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven. Heaven and earth seemed to have stopped operating at this moment, turning into a monstrous force that pressed down on the Chaos Fiend gods. On the other side, the Chaos Fiend gods were not afraid at all. Using his body as a weapon, he formed a fist seal with his hands and struck at the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven. Rumble! A monstrous aura spread out, sweeping through everything. The rules were distorted and broken. The void was like a mirror, shattering layer by layer. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a state of nothingness. Fortunately, this battle took place in the deepest part of the void, in an unknown time and space. Otherwise, the impact of this battle on the primal chaos would not be much worse than the war of the liches and demons, because even the liches and demons battle only involved 3 primordial chaos experts. And this battle was a battle between 9 primordial chaos experts. If things went wrong, the entire primal chaos might not exist. In the depths of the void, the battle was still ongoing, and the outside world was not calm either. As the 9 primordial chaos experts all went to the depths of the void, the demon sect experts gradually became active, especially when they discovered that Fushi was the only one left guarding the demon god flag. Almost without hesitation, they charged towards Fushi. For the future development of the demon sect, nothing must happen to the Khanate ferocious beasts. Therefore, the demon god flag, a treasure that could restrain the Khanate ferocious beasts, could not be left behind. It had to be destroyed. Human Dao Emperor Seal. Suppress. Sensing the danger, Fushi directly took out the Khanate cardinal treasure, the Human Dao Emperor Seal, releasing wisps of human Dao light to protect himself. At the same time, dragon-shaped purple airflows appeared on his body, emitting an aura that could destroy all laws. This was the Emperor Qi of the Heavenly Emperor. It was a type of Emperor Qi that had the supreme power to destroy all laws. Under the worship of all races, the Emperor Purple Qi in Fushi's body was nourished and gradually matured, evolving into the Emperor Qi of the Heavenly Emperor to protect Fushi. Rumble. An aura that belonged to a Khanate cardinal treasure spread out and shattered the divine skills that the demon sect experts had thrown at him. After that, Fushi flicked his sleeve, and the Emperor Qi of the Heavenly Emperor surged out, turning into 6 extremely majestic and noble 9-clawed purple dragons that pounced into the surrounding void. Kill! Accompanied by a cold voice, for strange demonic shadows walked out of the void and charged towards Fushi. Their speed was extremely fast, but even though they were fast, the Emperor Qi of the Heavenly Emperor was faster. Before the 4 of them could reach Fushi, the 9-clawed divine dragon formed by the Emperor Qi of the Heavenly Emperor pounced over and crashed into them. The 4 of them did not care and raised their fists to meet it. But in the next moment, the expressions of the 4 changed drastically. They could not care less about killing Fushi and hurriedly retreated. What a strange power! In the distance, the 4 of them stopped in their tracks and looked at their right fists with ugly expressions. It was this fist that blasted towards the Emperor Qi of the Heavenly Emperor. It was also this blow that caused them to suffer a great loss. They did not know what kind of power that purple true dragon was formed from, but it was unimaginably domineering. When their power came into contact with it, it was as if they had met their natural enemy and melted rapidly. Sensing that something was wrong, the 4 of them hurriedly retreated, but there was still a portion of the Emperor Qi that followed their fists and entered their bodies. Although this portion of the Emperor Qi brought them some trouble, it was not enough to hurt them. What really made their expressions change was, if they wanted to expel this Emperor Qi, they would need to use several times the power of the Emperor Qi to succeed. This meant that the essence of the Emperor Qi was much higher than theirs. And when it was reflected on the body of the owner of the Emperor Qi, it meant that if he was in the same realm as them, he could easily fight several people at once. That was too terrifying. With this thought in mind, the 4 of them hurriedly raised their heads to look at Fushi. When they found that his realm was only at the great perfection of the sage-to-be, they heaved a sigh of relief. That's right, these 4 demons were all half-step primordial chaos. As the 4 great emissaries of the demon sect, their status was even higher than that of the demon sect elders, second only to the demon ancestor Luoho and the demon god Jidu. They were born at the end of the primordial era and attained their Tao in the ancient times. They were almighty figures that dominated the ancient times. If not for the birth of the chaos demon god, they would have been the supreme ruler of the demon sect in the absence of the demon ancestor Luoho. In fact, although the Emperor Qi of the Heavenly Emperor was strong, it was not to this extent. It could only be said that these 4 demons were unlucky. The cultivation of the demon sect was mainly based on Yin Qi. and the Emperor Qi of the Heavenly Emperor was the most masculine and masculine, which happened to be the nemesis of Yin Qi. Therefore, the power of destroying all laws was unleashed to the extreme, causing a huge psychological trauma to the four of them. This person is strange. Let's attack with all our might and try to kill him in one blow. The four of them looked at each other and charged towards Fuxi again. And because they were afraid of the Emperor Qi of the Heavenly Emperor, the four of them did not dare to hold back and went all out in every move. What was even more terrifying was that, in order to kill Fuxi as soon as possible, they used their spirit treasures. One had to know that the four demons were not like the shadow demon. They were born in the primordial era and dominated the ancient times. They did not lack Khanate spirit treasures. For example, their spirit treasures were all supreme-grade Khanate spirit treasures with astonishing power. Under the siege of the four of them, even with the Khanate spirit treasure, the human Tao Emperor seal, Fuxi was gradually losing. It was not that Fuxi was not strong enough, but he had to protect the demon god flag while fighting the enemy, which made him unable to unleash his full strength. In this way, how could he be a match for the four of them? Crack, crack. At this moment, the defense that Feng Zichen had set up outside the canyon was finally broken through by more and more Khanate ferocious beasts. In a few breaths, a large number of Khanate ferocious beasts poured into the canyon. Primordial Chaos River Formation. Open. Fuxi's reaction was not slow. When the Khanate ferocious beasts poured into the canyon, he directly activated the Primordial Chaos River Formation outside the canyon. In an instant, the He-Tu and the Luo-Shu appeared, deducing the heavenly stems and earthly branches, the 9 palaces and 8 trigrams, gradually forming an array that contained everything. Khanate Taoist rhymes filled the air. Primordial Chaos River Formation. Khanate form. Swoosh! A ray of primordial chaos light flashed and swept the 4 demons who were besieging Fuxi into the array. After that, Fuxi held the demon god flag and also entered the array. As for the Khanate ferocious beasts, they completely ignored the array and continued to rush into the canyon, which was also the array. It had to be said that the demon god flag had a great influence on them, almost making them forget the danger. Of course, this also had to do with the fact that the Khanate ferocious beasts did not have intelligence. There was a certain relationship. Open. After the 4 demons fell into the array, they immediately knew that they had fallen into a trap and directly rushed out together. They had seen this primordial chaos river formation before and knew its power well. If there was no Fuxi, even if they fell into the array, they were confident that they would be able to break it. Chapter 569. However, if Fuxi was added, the 4 demons would not be able to break through with the power of the formation. It was even possible that they would be lost in the array formation, and there was a possibility that they would die. However, before the 4 demons could rush out of the formation, Fuxi had already arrived at the center of the formation and activated the power of the primordial river formation to the extreme. Rumble. Vast power surged, releasing the Tao of the universe's changes, evolving the upper-class world and various phenomena. At this moment, with the support of the primordial river formation, Fuxi felt that he had entered a mysterious realm, as if he had achieved perfection. He understood this was the power of the primordial chaos Tao realm, the combination of the god and the formation, allowing him to temporarily possess the power of the primordial chaos. At this moment, looking at the 4 demons again, Fuxi felt that they had become incomparably small, as if he could kill them with a raise of his hand. However, Fuxi also understood that these were all illusions. The 4 emissaries of the demon sect had cultivated to such a realm and had long become the vessels of the chaos demon god. They had incredible power. Perhaps they could not defeat a primordial chaos expert, but they could definitely resist 1 or 2. Go in! Shaking his head, Fuxi eliminated the delusions in his heart and waved at the 4 demons. An invisible ripple spread out and swept them into the canyon. That was where the galaxy cosmic light formation was. Although the primordial river formation was strong, it was still a little difficult to deal with the 4 demons. In particular, There were a large number of Khanate ferocious beasts in the formation. Those Khanate ferocious beasts were of different realms. The weak ones were as strong as Daluo Jinxian, while the strong ones were comparable to late-stage Sage-to-be experts. With so many Khanate ferocious beasts and 4 half-primordial demons, Fuxi did not think that the primordial river formation could withstand their impact. Therefore, Fuxi simply sent the 4 demons into the depths of the canyon and used the galaxy cosmic light formation to deal with them to relieve the pressure on the primordial river formation. "We're out." What does he mean? Inside the canyon, the 4 demons climbed up from the void and looked around. They realized that they had already left the primordial river formation. This puzzled them. They did not understand what Fuxi meant and why he had let them out. Whatever. Anyway, let's leave this place first. Worried that Fuxi might have other plans, the 4 demons didn't dare to stay here for long. They quickly tore open the void and planned to leave this place. However, when they walked out of the broken void, they found that what they saw was not the scene outside the canyon, but an extremely vast starry sky. Galactic Cosmic Light Array. Although this supreme formation had been activated, the space within the formation canyon had long been enveloped by it. It would be fine if the 4 demons flew out, but they were planning to leave through the void. This was simply walking into a trap. Of course, they plunged headfirst into the galactic cosmic light array. Does this place look like the boundless starry sky? Could it be that we've arrived at the boundless starry sky? Not good, we've been tricked. Let's go. In the blink of an eye, the 4 demons realized that something was wrong. They were about to break open the void again to leave this place. Although he didn't know where this starry sky was, it definitely wasn't a boundless starry sky. They knew how far they could go in the void that they had broken through. It was impossible to casually open a void passage and allow them to cross the endless void and arrive at the boundless starry sky. I can't open it. One of the 4 demons raised his hand and struck the void, about to open a void passage. However, the result surprised him. He couldn't open this space. He, who didn't believe in heresy, tried to attack the void a few more times. However, the void here was abnormally firm. No matter how many times he tried, he couldn't shake it in the slightest. What? Seeing this, the other 3 of the 4 demons were also shocked. They all attacked the void in front of them. Boom! 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 3 violent forces exploded in the starry sky, shaking the stars, but they didn't cause any damage to the void. It was as if their attacks had hit nothing. There are ghosts here. We can't stay here for long. Let's join forces and break through the void with all our strength. The 4 of them looked at each other, raised the Khanate spirit treasure in their hands, and fiercely attacked the void. Rumble! The starry sky shook, and stars lit up one after another, blooming with bright light, forming a vast galaxy in the starry sky. At the same time, billions of starlight gathered and turned into a huge beam of light. Cosmic light. Light of time. This was the impact of the cosmic light array of the galaxy, and it was activated spontaneously. Whoosh! The galaxy flowed and surged toward the 4 demons. The cosmic light flickered and brushed toward the 4 demons. For a moment, space condensed and time stood still. The 4 demons were forcefully fixed on the spot, unable to move at all. They could only watch as the cosmic light surged toward them. In the blink of an eye, the 4 of them were drowned by the cosmic light of the galaxy. Russell being in the cosmic light of the galaxy, the 4 demons seemed to have come to the long river of time and space. They were carried up by the starlight and kept looking back. And in this process, their power was also constantly flowing away. Time reversal. It was one of the most terrifying supreme divine abilities of the primordial world, and also one of the most heaven-defying divine abilities of the primordial world, reversing the enemy's time and returning them to the stage when they had just cultivated. In this way, wouldn't it be easy to kill them? Such an ability was feared by countless people. In the primordial world, although the realm after Daluo was eternal, once it was achieved, there was no risk of falling. However, realm was realm and strength was strength. The two were completely different. Reversing time. It was strength, but it was realm. If one had realm but no strength, how much strength could they exert? Facing an expert of the same level, they could be killed with a flip of their hand. Just as the four demons were trapped in the cosmic light of the galaxy formation, elsewhere, outside the canyon, Fuxi had fully recovered the power of the primordial river formation. He displayed his supreme killing methods and began to harvest Khanate ferocious beasts on a large scale. Whoosh, streaks of primordial Tao light intertwined like the sharpest sword, forming a huge net above the formation and heading toward the Khanate ferocious beasts in the formation. Puchi, Puchi, Puchi. The primordial Tao light was the supreme killing light. It was true that one would die if touched, and one would be injured if grazed. Under the attack of the primordial Tao light, the Khanate ferocious beasts of Daluo Jinxian's level were almost defenseless. Just being touched by the primordial Tao light was like being cut by countless swords and knives, slicing them into countless pieces. They died without a complete corpse. Only the sage-to-be Khanate ferocious beasts with extremely strong physical bodies could withstand the attack of the primordial Tao light. However, there were still a few sage-to-be Khanate ferocious beasts. Most of them were Daluo Jinxian's level. Therefore, every time the primordial Tao light flashed, it would harvest the lives of a large number of Khanate ferocious beasts, leaving countless pieces of flesh on the spot. Not long after, the entire canyon was covered with the broken bodies of the Khanate ferocious beasts, turning into a veritable swamp of flesh and blood. A slaughterhouse. This place, it seemed to have become a huge slaughterhouse, a slaughterhouse that specialized in slaughtering Khanate ferocious beasts. The smell of blood, an extremely strong smell of blood spread out from the canyon and spread to the surrounding tens of thousands of miles. However, it was such a strong smell of blood that not only did it not stop the Khanate ferocious beasts from surging over, but it also stimulated them even more. It made them even crazier. More and more Khanate ferocious beasts were surging over. It was also at this time that Feng Zichen, who was guarding the World Tree, used the roots of the World Tree to quietly come here. The roots of the World Tree were all over the untainted land and countless dimensions. Moreover, the roots of the World Tree also had the ability to ignore any seals. In other words, through the roots of the World Tree, one could reach any place in the untainted land at any time. In the entire untainted land, only Feng Zichen, who was the owner of the World Tree, could use this ability of the World Tree. It was precisely because of this that Feng Zichen took the initiative to take on the responsibility of guarding the World Tree. Through the World Tree, he could provide support at any time and return at any time. It could be said that he came and went like the wind. Not bad at all. Looking at the flesh and blood of the Khanate ferocious beasts all over the canyon, Feng Zichen's eyes gradually narrowed. Then, he formed a seal with both hands and activated the power of all the Daos in the heavens, gradually outlining the phantom image of a 9-story altar in the void. This phantom image was the blood altar. It was the runes that Feng Zichen deduced to build the blood altar according to the results of his deduction. Next, he would pour enough power into this phantom image to turn it from illusion to reality and be completely born. Blood altar. Refine. Calming down, Feng Zichen performed a secret skill to guide the flesh and blood of the ferocious beasts to the phantom image of the blood altar on the ground. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The phantom image of the blood altar seemed to have sensed the aura of the flesh and blood. It trembled and emitted an indescribable wave, shattering all the flesh and blood that surged over. Whoosh, whoosh. At this time, there seemed to be a huge whirlpool around the blood altar, emitting a huge suction force to devour and refine the shattered flesh and blood. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Nourished by the flesh and blood of the Khanate ferocious beasts, the blood altar became more and more magical. Wisps of bloody light bloomed from it, making it look abnormally demonic. At the same time, it gradually became fuller and began to have a texture. It was no longer so illusory and was gradually transforming into reality. Roar! A huge roar was heard, disrupting Feng Zichen's thoughts. Looking up, it was a Khanate ferocious beast in the late stage of the sage-to-be. It resisted the attack of the primordial Tao light and came to the edge of the primordial river formation. It was constantly attacking the formation. Ordinary primordial Tao light could no longer cause fatal damage to a Khanate ferocious beast at this level. With the power of the primordial river formation, it would need to mobilize more power to kill it. But in this way, it would give the other Khanate ferocious beasts a chance to breathe, causing an inexplicable change. Therefore, Fuxi thought for a while and opened a passage at the edge of the formation, allowing it to leave. Since the primordial river formation did not have any extra power to deal with the sage-to-be Khanate ferocious beast, it would be left to the galaxy cosmic light formation to deal with it. In this regard, Feng Zichen, who was silently watching this place, did not have any dissatisfaction. According to his plan, the primordial river formation only played the role of screening, making it convenient to kill the weak Khanate ferocious beasts. The powerful Khanate ferocious beasts would be left to the galaxy cosmic light formation to deal with. As soon as the sage-to-be Khanate ferocious beast left the primordial river formation, it entered the galaxy cosmic light formation. What greeted it was the bombardment of billions of stars. In just a few breaths, the sage-to-be Khanate ferocious beast was blasted into pieces by countless stars. Its flesh and blood flew toward the blood altar under the guidance of Feng Zichen. Whoosh! After devouring the flesh and blood of the sage-to-be ferocious beast, the blood altar suddenly lit up and gave birth to mysterious runes. Seeing this, Feng Zichen could not help but cheer up and stare at those mysterious runes. He knew that whether the blood altar had the ability to bring the dead back to life depended on these mysterious runes. Runes were the foundation of everything. Life and death, fate, sacrifice. How could it be? In the beginning, Feng Zichen looked at these runes and could still see the meaning they represented, such as life and death, fate, sacrifice, and so on. These were the great Daos that were closely related to the resurrection of the dead. At the same time, this was also the knowledge that he was involved in deducing the blood altar. But gradually, Feng Zichen could not understand. As the number of runes increased, the knowledge involved became wider and wider. These great Daos intertwined with each other and actually produced an inexplicable change, spontaneously deducing downward. This meant that the refinement of the blood altar was gradually getting out of Feng Zichen's control. But he did not panic. Everything was as expected. An experiment? It was inevitable that there would be accidents. Moreover, this change was deliberately facilitated by Feng Zichen. The refinement of the blood altar involved too many things. All kinds of great Daos were intertwined, and there were endless changes. Even with the help of the creation Jade Disc and Hongmeng Daozhong, Feng Zichen could not deduce all of them. Therefore, he thought of a shortcut. That was to let it evolve spontaneously. Human strength was limited, but the Tao was endless. What Feng Zichen could not do, the Tao could. He listed out the Daos involved in refining the blood altar one by one. Then, he guided them by the side and let them evolve according to his will. Of course, this method was not as simple as it was said to be. He had gone through countless difficulties before he finally succeeded. There was no need to describe them one by one. This method, it might not be 100% successful, but it was much better than Feng Zichen's own deduction. Tisk, TSK, TSK. How complicated. Looking at the increasingly complicated runes, even Feng Zichen had a headache. However, he was still trying his best to memorize and understand the meaning of these runes. These could all be turned into a foundation and deepen his understanding of the great Tao. Dang. Hongmeng Daozhong rang softly. Buzz. The creation Jade Disc fragment trembled slightly. The combination of the two raised Feng Zichen's comprehension to an unimaginable level. Suddenly, the runes that he could not understand before were no longer secrets in front of him. Just as Feng Zichen was crazily absorbing knowledge, the blood light around the blood altar suddenly flickered violently. Then, there was a bang sound. The entire blood sacrifice altar exploded. Chapter 570. I failed. Looking at this scene in a daze, Feng Zichen was slightly absent-minded. But after a while, he readjusted his state of mind. This was all within his expectations. The blood altar's function was so heaven-defying that it was naturally extremely difficult to refine. Of course, it was impossible to succeed in one try. Failure was inevitable. Only by experiencing a few more failures could one summarize enough experience to refine the blood altar perfectly. Previously, Feng Zichen had comprehended the runes not only to deepen his foundation, but also to summarize his experience and detect the inadequacies. Therefore, after failing, he would make adjustments in the next experiment. Next, Feng Zichen continued to draw the flesh and blood of the innate ferocious beasts and began to refine the blood altar again. We can't delay any longer. If we delay any longer, we will all die in this formation. In the galaxy cosmic light formation, under the erosion of the power of time and space, the strength of the four demons had fallen from half-step primordial chaos to the great circle of Sage to Be. Moreover, it would not be long before they fell to the late stage of Sage to Be. At this time, in order to survive, there was only one way in front of the four demons, which was to increase their strength at all costs, so that they could break free from the restraint of the galaxy cosmic light formation. Otherwise, after a while, the strength of the four demons would be reduced to the level of Daluo Jinxian. In this way, his time of death would come. Okay. Later, I will use a secret method to stimulate the ferocity of the innate ferocious beasts and make them crazily attack the formation. Then, we will seize the opportunity to fight with all our strength and blast open the formation in one fell swoop. The leader of the four demons looked at the innate ferocious beasts below and said with some surprise. As time passed, more and more innate ferocious beasts came. Among them, there were no less than 100 innate ferocious beasts at the Sage to Be level. These innate ferocious beasts were all gathered in the galaxy cosmic light formation and were desperately rushing to the deepest part of the canyon. Although the galaxy cosmic light formation was powerful, it could not kill all these innate ferocious beasts at the Sage to Be level in a short time. After being bombarded by countless stars again and again, although many of these innate ferocious beasts had died, there were still dozens of them who survived. And this was the hope of the four devils to break the formation. The combined strength of the four of them might not be able to break the galactic cosmic light array, but with the addition of dozens of Sage to Be connate ferocious beasts, with such power, he would definitely be able to break the formation. Burn! The eldest of the four demons ignited the blood of the Chaos Demon God in his body. Suddenly, a tyrannical and overbearing aura rose from his body. It broke through the blockade of the cosmic light and swept toward the dozens of connate ferocious beasts. Roar, roar, roar. Under the influence of this aura, the Xiantian ferocious beast went completely mad. Its eyes turned scarlet, and it became even more ferocious. At the same time, they broke free from the influence of the demon god flag. Rumble! The Xiantian ferocious beast, which had gone completely berserk, no longer dashed towards the depths of the canyon. Instead, it was constantly destroying everything in front of it. At this moment, the galaxy cosmic light array, he received a huge shock. Chance! Seeing this, the four demons hurriedly burned their origin source to forcefully increase their strength and break free from the space-time power. Open for me! For as soon as they regained their freedom, the four demons joined forces and blasted toward the starry sky in an attempt to shatter the formation. Boom! The galaxy trembled, and the stars swayed. Under this attack, the galaxy cosmic light array shook violently. Even the heavenly cycle star banner, which was the foundation of the formation, had cracks appearing on it. After all, it was not a connate object. Its strength was still insufficient and could not withstand such a large-scale bombardment. It was damaged, causing a flaw to appear in the formation. In response, Feng Zichen thought about it and formed a Taoist seal toward the four demons. The galaxy cosmic light array could not be lost. He could not let the four demons destroy it. What? The four demons, who had failed their first attack, were about to launch a second attack. Just as they were about to attack, they felt an irresistible force surging from the void and fiercely imprinted on their bodies, slamming them into the deepest part of the canyon. Poof! for a mouthful of blood was involuntarily spat out from the 4 demons' mouths. So powerful! Lying on the ground, the 4 demons still said with lingering fear. With just one attack, the 4 of them were severely injured. In other words, the person who had such power had the ability to kill the 4 of them. Dijiang, Candle Dragon, Shi Bai Shi, Gomong, Zhu Rong. Just as the 4 demons were shocked, 12 ancient chanting voices came from the void, constantly chanting the names of the 12 ancestral sorcerers. This aura, this is the 12 divine beings' formation. Oh no, let's go. Hearing these voices, the 4 demons were puzzled at first. Then, as if they had thought of something, they could not help but scream in shock. Then, the 4 demons got up from the ground. Ignoring their injuries, they were about to break through the void and leave this place. Unfortunately, it was all too late. As the void shook, 12 towering figures walked out from it. They sealed off all space and time and charged toward the 4 demons. Boom! A terrifying battle broke out. Not far away, Feng Zichen glanced at them indifferently and then looked away. The 4 demons were dead for sure. They were no longer worth his attention. If they were still in peak condition, they might have a chance of survival. But now they were all severely injured. There was no hope of escaping. As for inviting the will of the Chaos Demon God to descend, that would undoubtedly make them die faster and more thoroughly. It was the 12 ancestral sorcerers who were fighting the 4 demons. The ancestral sorcerers who were known as the Son of Pangu. It would be fine if the will of the Chaos Demon God did not descend. But once it did, it would definitely activate the mark of Pangu in the 12 ancestral sorcerers. TSK, TSK, TSK. If it really came to that, perhaps what welcomed the Chaos Demon God, it would be an axe light that crossed space and time. Time flowed like water. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. On this day, Feng Zichen, who had experienced dozens of failures, finally saw the dawn of success. Is it going to succeed? In the dark, Feng Zichen stared at the blood altar that was taking shape. His tone was slightly excited. Dozens of times. After the first failure, he had experienced dozens of failures. This time, he was the closest to success. Everything was going according to his plan. Shwa, shwa, shwa. When the last rune was completed, a strange blood-red light was emitted from the blood altar and dyed the sky and earth a blood-red color. Darkness, strangeness, inauspiciousness, death aura, and other negative energies appeared one after another within the blood-red light, causing this place to become increasingly strange. Even someone as powerful as Feng Zichen could not help but feel a chill down his spine in this environment. Oh my God! What's going on? Surprised, Feng Zichen subconsciously looked at the blood altar. As far as his eyes could see, there was a boundless sea of blood. After a while, the sea of blood slowly receded, revealing a 9-story altar. It was blood-red all over, as if it was flowing blood. It looked abnormally strange. Moreover, his body was filled with a strange and ominous aura. It was as if one would be unable to extricate themselves from it with just a glance, giving birth to all kinds of ominous things. Even Feng Zichen, after staring at the blood altar for a long time, felt that his mind was a little restless, as if he was about to sink into it. Hiss. There won't be any problem with this blood altar, right? Feng Zichen sucked in a breath of cold air and couldn't help but worry. Even his mind was shaken. Didn't this mean that if an ordinary sage-to-be stared at the blood altar, his mind would be taken away if he was not careful? This was too scary. What kind of existence was a sage-to-be? There were a few experts in the untainted land who could dominate a region, but they could not defend against the blood altar. From this, one could see how strange this treasure was. Moreover, what was even more worrisome was the ominous aura that enveloped the blood altar. This ominous aura came from nowhere, and its function was unknown. But facing it, even someone as powerful as Feng Zichen could not help but feel a chill down his spine, and he dared not let it get close to him. This alone was enough to make Feng Zichen wary. After all, with his current strength and identity, there were not many forces in the world that could hurt him. This is troublesome. Looking at the blood altar in front of him, Feng Zichen was a little hesitant for a moment, not knowing what to do. He wanted to test its ability, but he was also a little worried that the strange ominous aura on its body would cause bad consequences and involve great karma. Fellow Taoist Ziwei, what kind of magic treasure are you refining? Why is it so strange? Just as Feng Zichen was hesitating, Hao Yan's voice came from afar. Looking up, he saw that, in the depths of the void, Hao Yan and the other 2 and the 6 people from the demon sect had stopped fighting at the same time and were rushing towards him. It turned out that the moment the blood altar was formed, the commotion caused was too great. Even the 9 people in the depths of the void felt the spine-chilling ominous aura. This shocked them. To be able to make existences who had reached their level feel spine-chilling. How powerful was that kind of power? They were shocked and puzzled. It actually caused both sides to stop fighting at the same time. They searched for the source of that aura. As soon as he came out, Hao Yan saw Great Emperor Ziwei and the blood altar at the same time. The power that made his hair stand on end was emitted from this treasure. Curious, Hao Yan asked directly. This was the scene from before. Oh. Keep. Glancing at the 6 demon gods, Feng Zichen waved his sleeve and put the blood altar into his sleeve. Of course, this was in the eyes of outsiders. In fact, he had put the blood altar into Hongmeng Daozhong. Before he figured out the origin of the ominous aura, Feng Zichen did not dare to let it get close to him. He did not intend to let the other magic treasures be contaminated by the ominous aura. If something went wrong, he would suffer a great loss. Therefore, only Hongmeng Daozhong, the doctrine artifact, that could be said to be a treasure of the Great Path and the source of all Tao, he dared to let it come into contact with the ominous aura. After all, Hongmeng was the beginning of being. No matter how strange the ominous aura was, it could not escape the scope of Hongmeng. After doing all this, Feng Zichen turned to Hao Yan and said, "Brother Hao Yan, we'll talk about this later. Right now, the most important thing is to send all of these old seniors away." As he spoke, Feng Zichen looked at the 6 chaos demon gods. What he meant was that he wanted to join forces with Hao Yan and the other 2 to kill the 6 demon gods here. The effect of the blood altar could be tested at any time. However, there were not many opportunities to kill the 6 chaos demon gods. Perhaps this was the only chance. For the primordial world, for all living beings, and for himself, he could not let go of this opportunity. Fellow Taoist, you're right. Hearing this, Hao Yan nodded. He was also someone who knew the severity of the situation. He knew that this was not the time to discuss that strange magic treasure. Seizing the opportunity to kill the chaos demon gods was the most important thing. Do it! With a thought, Feng Zichen released the power of the heavenly gods that belonged to Great Emperor Ziwei and integrated it into the celestial the arch projection in the void. Suddenly, a boundless starry sky appeared in the projection of the primordial world. At the same time, the celestial the arch projection, which was originally extremely blurry, also became clearer, gradually revealing a perfect face. Boom! With the support of Great Emperor Ziwei's authority, the celestial the arch projection's strength increased greatly. It rose from the 9th level of the primordial chaos to the 12th level of the primordial chaos. A powerful aura swept out, pressing toward the 6 chaos demon gods in front. Humph! The chaos demon gods were not afraid at all. They also released their aura to fight against the celestial the arch projection. With the support of the will of chaos, the pride of the chaos demon gods returned. Therefore, how could the arrogant them tolerate lowering their heads? Of course, they would face the challenge head-on. Rumble. 2 extremely powerful auras collided with each other, causing space to collapse and all things to vanish into nothingness. And the result was naturally the chaos demon god's defeat. How could a 9th-level chaos demon god fight against a 12th-level chaos demon god? After a slight contact, the chaos demon gods were forced to retreat several steps. Kill! Feng Zichen and the other 3 were unforgiving. Seeing that the chaos demon gods were at a disadvantage, they controlled the celestial the arch projection and charged toward the chaos demon gods. Boom! The celestial the arch-projection raised his hand to form a seal, connecting the dais of heaven and earth. Time and space were distorted, and a 33-story pagoda surrounded by Taoist light slowly emerged. A top-tier Khanate treasure, the Miluotian Primordial Pagoda. It was not a projection, nor was it a projection. It was the true body. The power of the celestial the arch-projection was so strong that it distorted time and space, capturing the true body of the Miluotian Primordial Pagoda from the future and making it manifest in the present world to suppress and kill powerful enemies. The supreme treasure manifested and floated in the air. Its bottom was aimed at the Chaos Demon Gods, and strands of creation Taoist light swept toward the Chaos Demon Gods, trying to take them into the pagoda. Distorting time and space? What a powerful force! Under this force, even the powerful Chaos Demon Gods could not help but be a little moved. Not daring to underestimate their opponent, the Chaos Demon Gods directly used their strongest technique to attack the creation Taoist light. Splash! 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 The creation Taoist light was like a divine chain of order. With an inexplicable power, it directly ignored the Chaos Demon Gods' supernatural powers and wrapped around their bodies, binding them and pulling them into the pagoda. Chapter 571. Damn it! Open for me! The Chaos Demon God was unwilling to give up after being bound by the creation Tao light. He struggled with all his might in an attempt to break free. Unfortunately, although there was only a difference of 3 levels between Chaos Origin Realm Level 9 and Chaos Origin Realm Level 12, the difference in strength was huge. Therefore, no matter how hard the Chaos Demon God struggled, he couldn't break free from the creation Tao light and was gradually pulled into the Meiluo Heaven Premier Pagoda. Refine! The Celestial Emperor's shadow formed a Tao seal, and the Meiluo Heaven Premier Pagoda began to rotate slowly. The creation Tao light turned into raging flames and burned the Chaos Demon God in the pagoda. At the same time, endless and majestic celestial demon phantoms appeared and circled around the Meiluo Heaven Premier Pagoda. They chanted continuously to strengthen the creation Tao fire and increase its power. Boom! 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 Inside the Meiluo Heaven Premier Pagoda, the Chaos Demon God attacked the walls of the pagoda again and again, trying to break free. In the beginning, the Meiluo Heaven Premier Pagoda shook from their attacks as if it would break apart at any time. But as time passed, the creation Tao fire burned more vigorously and the Chaos Demon God gradually showed signs of being refined. His strength weakened bit by bit, and he gradually lost the ability to resist the pagoda's refinement. Huff, huff, huff! Under the refinement of the Meiluo Heaven Premier Pagoda, strands of chaos origin surged out of the Chaos Demon God's body and merged with the pagoda. The Chaos Demon God grew weaker and weaker until he was unable to resist the Meiluo Heaven Premier Pagoda until he was refined to death by the Tao fire. Hey! Something's not right. As he watched, Feng Zichen suddenly realized that something was wrong and couldn't help but be surprised. After devouring so many Chaos Demon God's origins, the Meiluo Heaven Premier Pagoda's power didn't increase at all. That was the Chaos Demon God's origins, a peerless material that could be used to refine Chaos Spirit treasures or Khanate Cardinal treasures. Even if the Meiluo Heaven Premier Pagoda was a top Khanate Cardinal treasure, after devouring so many Chaos Demon God's origins, it shouldn't have improved a little. But after half a day, the Meiluo Heaven Premier Pagoda's power didn't increase at all. In that case, where did the origin of the Chaos Demon God that he had devoured go? He couldn't just disappear into thin air. At this moment, a doubt surfaced in Feng Zichen's mind. Let me take a look. Curious, Feng Zichen secretly activated his heavenly Tao God Eye and looked at the boundless Heaven Primordial Pagoda. Today, he had to find out where the origin of the Chaos Demon God had gone. Whoosh! In an instant, the scenery in front of Feng Zichen changed drastically, and countless grotesque scenes flashed before his eyes. These images were of the present, the past, and the future. They were endless and surged toward him, dazzling him for a moment. A purple light flashed, and Feng Zichen found what he wanted to see from these messy images: the whereabouts of the origin of the Chaos Demonic God. In his eyes, there was a line that didn't seem to exist on the boundless heaven primordial pagoda in front of him, piercing into the depths of the void. The origin of the chaos demon god that had been refined by the Tao fire of creation followed this line and left the boundless heaven primordial pagoda. Looking down along that line, one could see that the end was the deepest part of the heaven realm, the place where the boundless heaven primordial pagoda was born. Good fellow, this boundless heaven primordial pagoda has such high intelligence. At this moment, Feng Zichen couldn't help but praise in his heart. How could he not understand what had happened? In this situation, it was obvious that the boundless heaven primordial pagoda was unwilling to exist in the future forever. Therefore, he took advantage of this opportunity to refine the chaos demon god to send the origin of the boundless heaven primordial pagoda that was being born in the present world to accelerate his birth. To be honest, this method was very clever. What was the origin of the chaos demon god? It was a treasure that even a saint would be jealous of. The 6 chaos demon gods were the best resources for the boundless heaven primordial pagoda that was being born. There was no need to devour all of them. As long as one of them was devoured, the boundless heaven primordial pagoda would truly be born. Moreover, even if this method was discovered by outsiders, they wouldn't be able to stop it. That was why it was said to be a wonderful method. At this time, the only way to stop the boundless heaven primordial pagoda from sending the origin was to stop refining the chaos demon god. However, it wasn't easy to seize the opportunity to refine the chaos demon god. How could Feng Zichen give it up? Therefore, even if he knew that this would allow Hao Yan to obtain a Khanate cardinal treasure, Feng Zichen couldn't destroy it. In the face of righteousness, Feng Zichen's little calculations were really nothing. Hao Yan is really lucky. Putting away his magic, Feng Zichen couldn't help but sigh at Hao Yan's luck. If it weren't for the appearance of the chaos demon god that interfered with the normal trajectory of the primordial world, Hao Yan wouldn't have had the chance to obtain a top-grade Khanate cardinal treasure like the boundless heaven primordial pagoda. If this treasure was successfully nurtured, perhaps Hao Yan would become the biggest winner in this great calamity. He didn't do much, but he became the biggest winner. This luck was really TSK. In the land of origin of the heaven realm, the Khanate cardinal treasure embryo that was being nurtured, the aura of the boundless heaven primordial pagoda, was getting stronger and stronger. Endless runes flickered on its body, interweaving into mysterious Tao patterns. The power of the myriad Tao of heaven and earth rolled over, evolving into all kinds of mysterious Tao artifacts that bombarded it, as if they were carrying out the final polishing. After repeated bombardments, the embryo's figure became more and more perfect. Gradually, the appearance of a tower could be seen. However, accidents often happened inadvertently. Just when Feng Zichen thought that victory was in his hands, the boundless heaven primordial pagoda that was refining the chaos demon god suddenly disappeared. Yes, disappeared. It directly disappeared in front of Feng Zichen and the other 3. There was no sign of it beforehand. Feng Zichen and the other 3 were naturally shocked. Although the chaos demon gods trapped in the pagoda were also surprised by the disappearance of the boundless heaven primordial pagoda, they were even more glad that they had escaped. Let's go! Taking advantage of the opportunity when Feng Zichen and the other 3 were distracted, the 6 chaos demon gods looked at each other and broke through the void as fast as they could, fleeing into the distance. It wasn't that they didn't want to take this opportunity to sneak attack Feng Zichen and the other 3, but their condition didn't allow them to. Having been refined by the boundless heaven primordial pagoda for a long time, their strength had long fallen to the bottom. If they really launched a sneak attack, it might not be effective. Instead, they might be trapped in it and miss this hard-won opportunity to escape. Want to leave? Stay. Hao Yan came back to his senses. Seeing that the 6 chaos demon gods wanted to escape, he was about to stop them. Unexpectedly, Feng Zichen suddenly reached out and stopped him. There's no need. We can't stop them. Let them go. Previously, the 6 chaos demon gods didn't intend to escape, so Feng Zichen and the other 3 could work together to stop them. Now, the 6 chaos demon gods were determined to escape, and the 4 of them couldn't stop them at all. Since that was the case, why waste energy to stop them? I didn't expect that there would be a time when the Chaos Demon gods would abandon battle and flee. After a few sarcastic words, Hao Yin also gave up on the idea of attacking. Brother, there are still many things you can't think of. Just like the boundless heaven primordial pagoda. Who would have thought that it had a time limit? Shaking his head and smiling, Feng Zichen said. When they were stunned just now, the four of them had already thought of the reason why the boundless heaven primordial pagoda disappeared. Time was up. After all, the boundless heaven primordial pagoda came from the future and couldn't exist in the present for a long time. There were all kinds of restrictions. When the time was up, it naturally had to return to the future. Of course, this was also related to the power of the Celestial Emperor's phantom, which was only at the 12th level of the primordial chaos. If it was the complete authority of the Celestial Emperor, its power would be infinitely close to the heavenly Tao. It could allow the boundless heaven primordial pagoda to exist in the present for a long time. Yes! I really didn't expect it. It's a pity. Hearing this, Hao Yin said with some regret. It was unknown if it was a pity that he didn't kill the Chaos Demon God, or a pity that because of the Chaos Demon God's escape, the boundless heaven primordial pagoda wasn't completed. Without the Chaos Demon God, the origin was naturally gone. The speed of the boundless heaven primordial pagoda's incubation also returned to its normal level. Feng Zichen looked at Hao Yin with some amusement and didn't say anything. As the Celestial Emperor in name, although Hao Yin's authority wasn't complete, he still had a righteous cause. Therefore, he must have some kind of connection with the boundless heaven primordial pagoda. In other words, Hao Yin definitely saw the changes in the boundless heaven primordial pagoda just now, but he didn't show it on his face. It had to be said that Hao Yin's thoughts were also deep. However, after this incident, although the boundless heaven primordial pagoda hadn't been completely incubated, the momentum of its birth could no longer be stopped. In the next few catastrophes, as long as the heaven realm didn't shatter again, this treasure would definitely be born. Compared to now, it was just a little late. But Hao Yin could wait. To him, the most meaningless thing was time. Of course, Feng Zichen wouldn't just watch this top-grade innate treasure that symbolized the identity of the Celestial Emperor fall into Hao Yin's hands. He would definitely think of a way to interfere. Who would complain about having too many treasures in their hands? Moreover, even if he couldn't get it, he couldn't let others get it. Only in this way could he ensure his interests to the greatest extent. As for how he was going to interfere, then there was no hurry, because the opportunity would come soon. If Feng Zichen remembered correctly, it wouldn't be long before Hao Yin would encounter a death calamity. A death calamity caused by the position of Celestial Emperor. Hao Yin was able to become Celestial Emperor not because of his own efforts, but because of the Tao ancestors' recommendation. In other words, to the primordial world, he didn't do anything. To the countless living beings, he didn't give the slightest favor. Without merit or virtue, how could Hao Yin become Celestial Emperor? As the saying goes, if one's virtue didn't match the position, there would definitely be a strange disaster. Hao Yin's death calamity came because of this. The merit on his body was not enough for him to become Celestial Emperor. Although with the protection of the Tao ancestor, even if Hao Yin encountered a death calamity, he would not really die. However, the Tao ancestor could not create merit for him out of thin air. Without enough merit, as long as Hao Yin was still Celestial Emperor, this death calamity would not disappear and would always follow him. Therefore, after the death calamity, Hao Yin would begin his reincarnation journey to accumulate merit. When Hao Yin returned, at that time, his title would become Hao Yin's Golden Tower Supreme Jade Emperor, the great heavenly venerable of forgiveness, the high god of the heavens, which was the Jade Emperor of the later generations. However, this was something that would happen many years later. During Hao Yin's tribulation, the heavenly court was without a master. This was Feng Zichen's opportunity. The opportunity to get his hands on the primeval pagoda of Meiluo heaven. At this moment, Feng Zichen and Hao Yin both had smiles on their faces. It was very meaningful. Oh! The Chaos Demon God had retreated, and the four of them did not need to maintain the Celestial Emperor's phantom anymore, so they dispersed it. Fellow Taoist Ziwei, what magic treasure were you refining just now? Why did you cause such a big commotion? At this moment, Hao Yin thought of what had happened just now and asked Feng Zichen. Nothing. I was just studying the structure of the innate ferocious beasts. I wanted to use this to explore the secrets of the Chaos Demon God. Who knew that I would trigger the backup plan that the Chaos Demon God left on the innate ferocious beasts, which led to the accident? Feng Zichen laughed and explained to Hao Yin. Was he on good terms with Hao Yin? Why did he explain the blood altar to him? If this treasure was completed, it could be used as a trump card. It was most suitable to be used to trick people, but it could not be easily known to outsiders. I see. Hao Yin laughed dryly and said. Of course, he didn't believe it. He was not a fool. If it was really a backup plan left behind by the Chaos Demon God, how could the 6 Chaos Demon Gods not recognize it? However, they were as confused as he was and did not know its origin. From this, it could be seen that this had nothing to do with the Chaos Demon God. However, Feng Zichen did not say anything. Hao Yin had no choice. He could not force Feng Zichen to say it. Not to mention that this would cause the two of them to become enemies. Even if they really fought, he might not be a match for Feng Zichen. The boundless starry sky was really too powerful. Fellow Taoist and fellow Taoists, this matter is over. I should go back and guard the Tree of World. Then I'll take my leave here. With the blood altar in his heart, Feng Zichen was not in the mood to chat with Hao Yin here. He casually found an excuse and left. After that, apart from Gaochen, Hao Yin and Luiz also left. Now that the demon sect had suffered heavy losses, it was the best time to attack them. He could not miss it. As for Gaochen, of course, he had to stay here and help Fushi kill the innate ferocious beasts. I have to find someone to test the effect of the blood altar. Under the Tree of World, Feng Zichen looked at the blood altar floating in the air and thought silently. No matter what the problem was with the blood altar, he only needed to find someone to test it. It was impossible for him to guess the reason by himself. But who should I test it on? For a moment, Feng Zichen was a little troubled. Chapter 572. First of all, those who had a good relationship with Feng Zichen definitely could not be tested. One could tell that the ominous aura was extremely dangerous at a glance. If it was tainted, there might be some problems. Therefore, it was best for this test subject to have a grudge against Feng Zichen. In this way, even if something went wrong, he would not feel heartache. It's you. After thinking about it, Feng Zichen had a goal. Then, he released his mind and crossed layers of void to arrive at the depths of the canyon, where the 12 divine beings' murderous array was. There, the 4 emissaries of the demon sect had been defeated by the projections of the 12 ancestral sorcerers. Their bodies and primordial spirits had been destroyed, leaving only a connate indestructible true spirit. Come to think of it, it wouldn't be long before they completely perished. How tragic! Looking at the miserable appearance of the 4 demons, Feng Zichen first shook his head. Then, he stretched out his right arm and gently stroked below. An invisible force suddenly descended and scattered the connate true spirits of the 4 demons. At this point, the pillars of the demon sect, the 4 emissaries, had all perished. Roar! 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 After the 4 demons perished, the 12 divine flags could not wait to tremble. They emitted a sparkling divine light and devoured the flesh and origin left behind by the 4 demons. The flesh and blood of all living beings could create an altar and also nourish the 12 divine flags. If Feng Zichen hardened his heart and let the 12 divine flags devour all living beings in the primordial world, he could promote the 12 divine flags to a connate cardinal treasure. Moreover, the 12 ancestral sorcerers could also be revived. This was the greatest function of the 12 divine flags. As long as it could be promoted to a connate cardinal treasure, it could revive the corresponding ancestral sorcerers. Once they returned, they would have the realm of primordial chaos and would not have any period of weakness. In other words, although the 12 ancestral sorcerers had perished, the 12 divine flags were still cultivating on their behalf, silently accumulating strength for them. It would not cause them to fall behind the times because they had been dead for too long. Of course, this method only looked feasible, but in fact it was not feasible at all. Feng Zichen was not a heartbroken person. Naturally, he would not do such a thing. What was more, the 12 ancestors of sorcery had died to protect the untainted land. If their descendants slaughtered the common people in order to resurrect them, what was the meaning of their sacrifice? Buzz, buzz, buzz. After devouring the 4 devils, the spiritual light on the 12 divine banners soared. It was not far from becoming a supreme-grade primordial spiritual treasure. Khanate numinous treasures were easy to create, but Khanate cardinal treasures were difficult to create. Spiritual treasure and supreme treasure. The difference of one word was like the difference between heaven and earth. It was too difficult to upgrade them. At the very least, there was still a long way to go before the 12 capital god banner could be upgraded to a Khanate cardinal treasure. It's you. Feng Zichen grabbed a wisp of essence from a capital heaven divine banner and returned his consciousness to the Tree of World. The owner of this essence chi was one of the 4 devils. As for who it was, Feng Zichen wasn't too sure, but it didn't matter. Anyway, it was all for the sake of experimentation. Regardless of whether he succeeded or not, in the end, he would be obliterated. If he succeeded, Feng Zichen could kill him with a flip of his hand. If he failed, he reckoned that the ominous aura that made one's heart palpitate would not end well for him. Go! After placing the devil's essence chi at the core of the blood altar, Feng Zichen began to activate the blood altar. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Wisps of demonic blood light blossomed from the blood altar and dyed the heavens and the earth blood red. At the same time, a thin mist silently descended and shrouded the place, giving off an ominous aura. Then, an inexplicable song sounded in the strange mist. It sounded like the prayer of the living, the murmur of the dead, and also the sound of Tao. It was mysterious and unfathomable. The spirit summoning song. The spirit summoning song. Although it was the first time he had heard this song, Feng Zichen inexplicably knew its origin and function. This song had the ability to gather the spirit summoning song. Its sound was the prelude to resurrecting the dead. Boom! The blood light on the blood altar became even more dazzling, as if it was burning and turning into a blood-like flame. Affected by this, the spirit summoning song became even more majestic. Unlike the dazzling blood light, the blood altar's body became dimmer as the blood flame burned. The blood crystal-like color gradually lost its luster and turned into an ordinary stone. This change meant that the power of the Khanate ferocious beast's flesh and blood that formed the blood altar was rapidly depleting. Whoosh! Suddenly a rain of blood fell. It was accompanied by the cries of ghosts and howls of gods. This made the place even more demonic. Amidst these changes, the core of the blood altar, where the devil's essence chi was undergoing a miraculous change. Specks of light came from all directions and gathered towards this wisp of essence chi. Gradually, a mark appeared on this wisp of essence chi. This was the spirit summoning imprint. It was the foundation of all living beings. It was also the proof of existence. The appearance of the spirit summoning imprint meant that the resurrection had begun. As the spirit summoning imprint condensed, more and more spirit summoning fragments surged over and gradually formed a complete Khanate indestructible true spirit. With one more step, its intelligence would be restored, and the devil would be completely returned. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Rumble! Under Feng Zichen's astonished gaze, the Tao of heaven and earth descended and blasted towards the blood altar in an attempt to destroy it and the devil's true spirit that was about to be revived. Is this the backlash of heaven and earth? I can't let you destroy the blood altar like this. Million sword illustration, go. Seeing this scene, Feng Zichen waved his hand and summoned the million sword illustration to protect the blood altar. Resurrection from the dead was a heaven-defying act. At the moment when it was about to succeed, a great tribulation would naturally descend to destroy everything. Of course, according to Feng Zichen's original plan, he would give some benefits to heaven and earth while reviving the dead. This would achieve a win-win situation and offset the tribulation. However, Feng Zichen did not give any benefits to heaven and earth in order to test the problem of the blood altar. Naturally, he would not receive any special care. The tribulation would come as it should. This was the reason for the current scene. Rumble. The mighty power of heaven and earth descended and crushed everything, sending the million-sword illustration flying. Zhouxing illustration. Seeing that the situation was not good, Feng Zichen hurriedly summoned the Zhouxing illustration and transformed it into a vast starry sky. He used the boundless starry sky to resist the power of heaven and earth and continued to protect the blood altar. Fortunately, in order to resist the chaos demon god, heaven and earth have transferred most of the power of heaven and earth. Otherwise, this attack alone would be enough to seriously injure me. After blocking the power of heaven and earth, Feng Zichen let out a long breath. This was the advantage of the absence of heaven and earth. Otherwise, the moment he saw the power of heaven and earth descend, he would have abandoned the blood altar and fled, not to mention resisting. Hold on for a while longer. I will be able to see the effect of the ominous aura soon. While resisting the attack of the power of heaven and earth, Feng Zichen looked towards the depths of the blood altar. There, after receiving Feng Zichen's protection, the demon god had begun to revive. At the same time, the ominous aura that Feng Zichen was afraid of also moved and pounced towards the demon. The demon that had just been revived did not have time to look at his surroundings before he was enveloped by the ominous aura. He could not help but let out a shrill scream. That scream was so miserable that it was really moving. Poison. Poison of path. Poison of path. Seeing the miserable appearance of the demon, Feng Zichen finally understood the origin of the ominous aura. He could not help but change his expression. That was poison. Poison that was born in the path. Therefore, it was called the poison of path. It only had one function, and that was to corrode all paths and turn one's path into nothing. Amidst the shrill screams of the demon, soon, his path was completely corroded by the poison of path and returned to silence. Dead. The demon had only been revived for a few breaths before he fell to the poison of path. He had just seen hope, but he experienced despair. It was really tragic to the extreme. Withdraw. Since the test subject was dead, Feng Zichen did not need to protect the blood altar anymore. He withdrew the Zhouxing painting and let it be destroyed by the power of heaven and earth. Poison of path. Interesting. The blood altar is done. Recalling everything that had just happened, Feng Zichen gradually smiled. Although the poison of path was powerful and difficult to remove once it was touched, the poison of path on the blood altar was not unsolvable. Although the demon did not live for long, Feng Zichen discovered that as his path decayed, the poison of path became less and less. This meant that the poison of path on the blood altar was a consumable. As long as there was enough power to replace the path, the safety of the revived person could be guaranteed. Moreover, it might not be so troublesome. Hongmeng Daozhong was mysterious and unfathomable. It might be able to deal with the poison of path. If he could collect it, he would have another great killing weapon in the future. With that in mind, Feng Zichen stepped out and came to the canyon again. The blood altar had been destroyed by the power of heaven and earth. He needed to refine another one. But fortunately, everything was difficult at the beginning. With the first result, refining the blood altar would not be so troublesome. Moreover, as time passed, more and more innate ferocious beasts died in the canyon. There would be no shortage of materials that Feng Zichen needed to refine the blood altar. Turn. Coming to the galaxy of universal light array again, Feng Zichen activated the array and operated the galaxy of universal light. He wrapped the flesh and blood of the innate ferocious beasts in the array and performed the great void teleportation. Whoosh! In an instant the void rotated. Everything in front of him blurred. When Feng Zichen's vision returned to normal, he had already arrived in the boundless starry sky. This was his territory that truly belonged to him. This time, Feng Zichen had enough confidence to refine the blood altar. He did not need to worry like last time. he could refine the complete version of the blood altar. Therefore, he returned to the boundless starry sky to baptize the flesh and blood of the innate ferocious beasts. As mentioned before, in order to prevent the innate ferocious beasts from dying, their flesh and blood would scatter into heaven and earth to strengthen the origin of the untainted land. The demon god of chaos had done something to the flesh and blood of the innate ferocious beasts, making them closely connected with the chaotic evil spirit and turning them into first-class dangerous things. It also made the untainted land unable to absorb them. Feng Zichen moved the flesh and blood of the innate ferocious beasts to the boundless starry sky. He wanted to use the power of Pangu to purify and baptize the flesh and blood, making it suitable for the untainted land to absorb the power. After all, in the later stage of the blood altar, the most important thing was the sacrifice to heaven and earth. The innate ferocious beasts contaminated with the chaotic evil spirit were not acceptable. They had to be purified innate ferocious beasts. Boundless starry sky combine. After placing the flesh and blood of the innate ferocious beasts in the boundless starry sky, Feng Zichen returned to the Emperor Star. Then, he let go of his mind and gradually merged with the will of the boundless starry sky. This was something that Dijun could not do. In the entire untainted land, only Feng Zichen could do it. This was the benefit he got from splitting the boundless starry sky. The current boundless starry sky was created by Feng Zichen, so he naturally had absolute control over it. Even if Dijun was reborn, he would not be able to break away from the rule of the boundless starry sky. In the untainted land, there were not many places that were like the boundless starry sky. For example, there were only a few places like the Heaven Realm, the Netherworld Realm, and the Ultimate Ruins. And the rulers of these areas could only borrow the will of the land they ruled, not merge with it. In this way, they could not exert the full power of the original will. But Feng Zichen was different. He was the will of the boundless starry sky, and the will of the boundless starry sky was him. He could perfectly exert the power of the boundless starry sky. In the boundless starry sky, he could even shout out the words, "As long as the boundless starry sky is not destroyed, the great emperor of Ziwei will not die." If the boundless starry sky was completely restored, Feng Zichen would even dare to say, standing in the boundless starry sky, even if Tao ancestor Hongjun came in person, he would still dare to fight. This was the blessing that the boundless starry sky brought to Feng Zichen, making him almost invincible. When Feng Zichen's mind completely merged with the will of the boundless starry sky, he seemed to have transformed into the boundless starry sky, reflecting everything in this place in his eyes. The first thing he saw was the majestic figure standing in the boundless starry sky, God Pangu. Speaking of which, although God Pangu was condensed by Feng Zichen using an array formation, over the years, the divine power on his body had become stronger. Although it had not reached the level of facing Pangu directly, it was gradually catching up to Mount Buzhou. Of course, Zhou had recovered some of his strength. But more importantly, it was because in the center of the boundless starry sky, directly below Ziwei, was the mountain of Mount Buzhou. Back then, when Mount Buzhou broke, Feng Zichen seized the opportunity to directly pull the broken mountain into the boundless starry sky to suppress Zhou. One had to admit that this move was really wonderful. Ever since the mountain of Mount Buzhou came to the boundless starry sky, it was baptized by the power of the stars day and night, as well as the nourishment of God Pangu. It gradually merged with the boundless starry sky. It would not be long before a divine mountain appeared in the boundless starry sky, a small Mount Buzhou. With the suppression of this divine mountain, the boundless starry sky would undoubtedly be more stable. In the future, it would be difficult to destroy the boundless starry sky. Moreover, the benefits of the fusion of Mount Buzhou and the boundless starry sky were not limited to this. Chapter 573. It should be known that with the cultivation of God Pangu, the origin of the boundless starry sky would become more and more powerful, and Mount Buzhou, which was integrated with it, would also benefit from it, and its origin would gradually deepen. Perhaps, one day in the future, with the increasing strength of the boundless starry sky, The broken section of Mount Buzhou would fully grow and reappear the unparalleled glory of Mount Buzhou that stood between heaven and earth, suppressing the past, present, and future. What was invincibility? This was invincibility. If one day, the complete divine mountain Buzhou reappeared in the boundless starry sky, then the boundless starry sky would become truly unbreakable. At the same time, Feng Zichen would also obtain the greatest capital to suppress the untainted land. After all, it was Mount Buzhou that had suppressed the untainted land for eternity. In this vast untainted land, who could contend with the mighty power of Mount Buzhou? In a daze, Feng Zichen's thoughts gradually left his body and came to the body of God Pangu, taking over everything. Powerful, unparalleled power. This was the most obvious feeling Feng Zichen had after taking over the body of God Pangu. In that breath, a majestic power surged in his body as if it could erupt at any time and destroy everything. In particular, Feng Zichen knew that this was not an illusion. The power of the Pangu celestial being was indeed capable of this. This was even more exciting. The power of God Pangu was formed by the power of the boundless starry sky, the power of Mount Buzhou, and the power of heaven and earth. It was extremely powerful. Once it erupted, it was comparable to an expert at the 7th level of the primordial chaos realm. In addition, the one who controlled this power was God Pangu, which was even more terrifying. Even an expert at the 9th level of the primordial chaos realm could fight with him. In the untainted land, besides the Tao ancestor and the devil ancestor, who could match such power? Anyway, Feng Zichen's current power was not worth mentioning in front of God Pangu. Phew. Taking a deep breath, large amounts of primal chaos energy surged from the great primal chaos and was sucked into the Pangu god's stomach. After that, it completed a great cycle in the body and was refined into strands of origin energy to repair the Zhouxing. In the boundless starry sky, just like that, he grew stronger day after day. Rise! After calming himself down, Feng Zichen controlled the Pangu celestial being to sit down cross-legged. Then he waved his hands and formed a mysterious seal. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In an instant, Zhouxing and billions of stars lit up one after another, scattering bits of starlight. Refine! When all the stars lit up, Feng Zichen suddenly opened his eyes. Using the starlight as a guide, he condensed a furnace in the void, the Star Dao furnace. Looking at its appearance, it was somewhat similar to the Great Dao Furnace, but it was the Zhouxing version of the Great Dao Furnace. Replacing the Great Dao runes that formed the Great Dao Furnace with Star Dao runes, it became the huge furnace in front of Feng Zichen. Boom! As soon as the Star Dao Furnace appeared, it shook violently. Then, it faced down and sucked in the flesh of the Khanate fierce beast in the starry sky. Swish, a terrifying suction force was released from the mouth of the furnace. In the blink of an eye, all the Khanate fierce beast flesh was sucked in. Then, the Star Dao furnace slowly returned to normal. Boom! 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 Next, billions of starlight gathered and turned into a raging flame, burning fiercely under the Star Dao furnace. In the flames, the Star Dao furnace slowly rotated. An invisible force spread and began to refine the Khanate fierce beast flesh. Sizzle, under the refinement of the Star Dao furnace, strands of chaos origin energy entwined with chaotic evil chi rose from the mouth of the furnace and floated toward the boundless starry sky. Wherever it passed, the void emitted a sizzling sound and gradually turned into nothingness. The laws wailed incessantly as they slowly dissipated. The power of chaotic evil chi could be seen from this. It was also at this time that Feng Zichen controlled the god Pangu and slowly operated the 3 enclosures Dao scripture. Swish! The starlight was like flowing water, slowly operating according to the trajectory of Zhouxing. If someone could see the god Pangu, then from the great chaos outside, they would be able to see the process of the starlight flowing. It was just like a cultivator cultivating. Spiritual energy slowly flowed in the meridians. It was truly mysterious and wonderful, and the chaos origin energy entwined with chaotic evil chi that gushed out from the Star Dao furnace was also wrapped in the starlight and began to flow in the meridians of the god Pangu. A large cycle passed. 2 great circulations passed. 3 major circulations passed. As the large cycles passed, the chaotic evil chi and the chaos origin energy gradually separated. The former was still operating with the starlight, while the latter was slowly being refined and precipitated in the dantian of the god Pangu. Time was like flowing water. In the blink of an eye, thousands of years had passed. On this day, the fiercely burning star fire shook for a moment and suddenly extinguished. Immediately after, the figure of the stellar Tao furnace that stood in the starry sky shook, then turned into specks of light that filled the sky and disappeared. It was the flesh and blood of the innate fierce beast that had been completely refined. The star fire and the star Tao furnace had completed their mission. Naturally, there was no reason for them to continue to exist. Withdrawing his mind, Feng Zichen's intelligence returned to his physical body. During this period, the huge gap between the power of the god Pangu and his own strength brought about a sense of disparity. Took Feng Zichen a while to adapt to it. Sigh, myself. When can I be as powerful as the god Pangu's father? After secretly sighing with emotion, Feng Zichen suppressed all kinds of thoughts in his heart and looked at his right hand, at a long black sword. This was an extremely dangerous sword. It was completely black, as if it could swallow all the light, as if it was the source of darkness. What was more terrifying was the aura that it emitted. It was an aura that could corrode everything. Even the great Tao was not spared. Chaotic evil chi. Yes, the origin of the sword was the chaotic evil chi that had been refined by the god Pangu. And it was the highest quality chaotic evil chi. It came from the body of a peak chaos demon god, and its power was beyond imagination. Even the Du Tian divine evil chi in Feng Zichen's body was far from being comparable to it. Of course, this was not to say that the Du Tian divine evil chi was not good enough, but that Feng Zichen was not good enough. In terms of quality, the Du Tian divine evil chi was the most powerful chaotic evil chi. There was no one else in the chaos that was more powerful than it. However, Feng Zichen's realm was too low. Compared to the chaos demon god at his peak, the gap was too big. It was like the gap between an ordinary immortal and a high and mighty sage. Therefore, in front of such a huge gap, no matter how high the quality of the Du Tian divine evil chi was, it could not be compared with the chaotic evil chi of a peak chaos demon god. Pangu was more likely to be the case. What a ferocious sword! With the divine sword in front of him, even Feng Zichen, the primitive sword ancestor, did not dare to reach out and touch this sword directly. He really did not dare to. It was really too fierce. With just a glance, Feng Zichen felt his heart skip a beat. If he really touched this fierce sword, Feng Zichen had no doubt that under the backlash of the chaotic evil chi, he would be seriously injured even if he did not die. Feng Zichen had seen a lot of chaotic evil chi, but they were all the remaining chaotic evil chi after the death of the chaos demon god. Their power had long been weakened and could not threaten him. However, it was the first time that Feng Zichen had seen the chaotic evil chi of a peak chaos demon god like this. It really shocked him to the extreme. At the same time, it also made him yearn for that chaos demon god. Just a wisp of chaotic evil chi from his body was enough to seriously injure him and even make him think of dying. If the original body of this chaos demon god appeared in front of him in person, how shocking would it be? He might not be able to kill him with just a thought. That realm, how great it was, how incredible it was. For Feng Zichen, although he yearned for Pangu's realm, that realm was too ethereal after all. It was not something that he could reach now. On the contrary, the realm when the chaos demon god was at the peak was what he should be pursuing now. When he reached the realm of the chaos demon god, it would be the time to reach the realm of Pangu. It was better to eat one mouthful at a time. Merge! With a slight thought, Feng Zichen merged with the god of Pangu again. This time, when he looked at the long sword condensed by the chaotic evil chi again, he could not help but feel a sense of familiarity in his heart. There was no fear like before. Although this sword was refined by the god of Pangu, with Feng Zichen's current strength, he could not resist the corrosion of the chaotic evil chi at all. Therefore, he could not control this ferocious sword. However, the god of Pangu was different. His strength was much stronger than Feng Zichen's. Even the chaotic evil qi was refined by him. Naturally, he could control this ferocious sword like an arm. Qi. At this time, Feng Zichen's heart moved. He controlled this ferocious sword and drew a sword flower in the starry sky. Following that, the space where the flower of swords was located disappeared without a trace. It turned into a state of nothingness, and nothing existed at all. Amazing! Seeing this scene, Feng Zichen could not help but feel a little excited. Then, he controlled the ferocious sword and practiced swordsmanship. Swish, swish, swish. The pitch-black sword light was extremely cold, emitting a bone-chilling cold light. It flickered in the starry sky like ghosts, destroying everything around it. In the excitement of the dance, Feng Zichen was no longer limited to the swordsmanship. He simply turned the ferocious sword back into the chaotic evil qi and practiced hundreds of weapons, displaying all kinds of mysterious magic. However, although the magic weapons were different, they had one thing in common, and that was their power was beyond imagination. Keep! After the excitement, Feng Zichen waved his hand and put away the chaotic evil qi. This was a great killing weapon, and he had to keep it well. Even he did not dare to let it get close to him. One could imagine its power. Even if the primordial chaos Dalio Jinxian got close to it, he might die if he was not careful. In fact, even if a sage got close to it, he would probably be seriously injured, and it would be the kind that the heavenly path could not cure. The reason why Feng Zichen brought the flesh of the innate stage ferocious beast to the boundless starry sky to refine was that the heaven and earth could not purify the chaotic evil qi in it. The power of the heavenly path came from the same source as the heaven and earth. Even the heaven and earth could not purify the power. There was a high probability that the heavenly path could not solve it. This meant that with the chaotic evil qi, Feng Zichen had an effective way to deal with the sage. In the future, he could find an opportunity. He could test the power of the chaotic evil qi on the two sages Juanti. At this moment, Feng Zichen thought silently. After putting away the chaotic evil qi, Feng Zichen got busy with business, refining the blood altar. Come! Feng Zichen looked down at the boundless starry sky and gently hooked his finger. The chaotic origin qi that had settled in the dantian of the god Pangu quickly surged toward him. It didn't take long for Feng Zichen to be wrapped in a gray airflow. And these gray airflows were one of the most noble treasures in the world, the chaotic origin qi of all things. If the chaotic origin qi in front of Feng Zichen was used to refine weapons, it would be enough for him to refine a supreme-grade innate spiritual treasure. There might even be some left over. However, Feng Zichen used such precious treasures to refine the blood altar to revive the dead. Maybe it was not enough. It had to be said that the price to pay for reviving the dead was not small. Refine! Feng Zichen formed a seal with both hands and began to refine the blood altar again. Suddenly, countless runes flew out and gradually formed the shadow of a 9-level altar in front of him. At the same time, the chaotic origin qi swarmed toward the 9-level altar. At this point, the surrounding chaotic origin qi began to decrease slowly. But Feng Zichen did not care about this. Compared to the blood altar's heaven-defying ability, a supreme-grade innate spiritual treasure was really nothing. With the experience of the previous success, the refining of the blood altar this time went smoothly. It didn't take much effort. Not long after, a huge 9-level altar made of blood crystal and surrounded by an ominous aura appeared in front of Feng Zichen. To be honest, if not for the ominous aura, the blood altar's appearance would be really good. It would be unusually beautiful. But because of the ominous aura, the overall beauty of the blood altar was destroyed and it made it look unusually strange. At first glance, one could tell that it was not a good thing. Whether it succeeds or not depends on this. Go. Looking at the blood altar, Feng Zichen first muttered to himself. Then, he took out the demon essence he had obtained from the 12 divine banner and inserted it into the core of the blood altar. Blood mist spread out, indicating that the blood altar had begun to be activated. *%yen hashtag at an ancient and mysterious spirit summoning melody sounded and echoed in Feng Zichen's ears. Under this mysterious melody, the power of the blood altar was rapidly depleted. At the same time, spots of light appeared from the void and gathered toward the demon essence at the core of the blood altar. Just like the previous time, the true spirit imprint in the demon essence condensed again, and then a complete, innate, indestructible true spirit was born. Thus, the most crucial step of the revival process had arrived. That was the awakening of spiritual intelligence. Chapter 574. Only by awakening its intelligence could it be considered a true resurrection. Not long after, a ray of light that represented wisdom appeared in the eyes of the demon, indicating that the demon had been resurrected. At this moment, the myriad Tao of heaven and earth suddenly trembled. An unparalleled power descended and pressed down on the demon on the blood altar. At the same time, the ominous aura was also trembling, turning into the poison of the great Tao and surging towards the demon. At this moment, it was as if the previous scene was replaying itself. But unlike the last time, this time, Feng Zichen was already prepared. Seeing that the mighty power of heaven and earth was about to descend, Feng Zichen suddenly formed a seal with both hands and made a sacrificial gesture. He sacrificed the chaos origin aura that filled his surroundings to heaven and earth. Great Emperor Ziwei, Pangu, Ziwei clan, hereby announce to the primordial world, today, I am willing to sacrifice the chaos origin aura in exchange for the return of the dead. May heaven and earth agree. Just as Feng Zichen was chanting the prayer, the chaos origin aura around him was decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was obvious that it was being absorbed by heaven and earth. Few seeing this, Feng Zichen could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. He was not afraid that he would absorb it, but he was afraid that he would not want it. As long as heaven and earth absorbed it, it meant that heaven and earth had accepted his bribe and allowed the dead to recover. As expected, as the chaos origin aura decreased, the mighty power of heaven and earth that was pressing down no longer moved forward. Moreover, its power was slowly fading away. Hongmeng Daozhong, suppress. After solving the problem of the backlash of heaven and earth, the next step was to remove the poison of the great Tao. Normally speaking, Feng Zichen should have used enough innate origin to consume the poison of the great Tao in exchange for the safe return of the dead. But because of Hongmeng Daozhong, Feng Zichen felt that he could try another method. That was to forcefully suppress the poison of the great Tao. Hongmeng's qi was the initial power, the beginning of Tai, and the manifestation of it. Therefore, in this world, anything that existed, it was all within his tolerance. Even the poison of the great Tao was no exception. In other words, Hongmeng's qi was the bane of everything. At the same level, no power could defeat the qi of Hongmeng. Although the poison of the great path was powerful, it was obviously not as powerful as Hongmeng Daozhong. Therefore, it was destined to be countered by Hongmeng Daozhong and not be its opponent. Dang 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 dang. The Tao bell rang softly. Strands of Hongmeng qi hung down. The instant the poison of the great Tao was about to make contact with the demon, it completely wrapped around it, suppressed it, and forcefully pulled it into the bell. Ha ha! I'm back. Fushi, North Star Celestial Monarch. I will definitely repay you 100-fold for killing me. Just you wait. At this moment, the demon finally realized what was going on and shouted, "What are you doing?" In fact, it was not his fault, because he really did not know what had just happened. With Feng Zichen's current level, he was able to ignore time. Therefore, although everything that had happened earlier seemed to have taken a long time, it had actually happened in a still space-time. It was not until everything was over that time began to flow again. It was also at this moment that the demon knew that he had been resurrected. As for why he was resurrected and what happened during his resurrection, he did not know anything. He did not have the time to think. Because the joy of being reborn had already filled his heart, he did not have the time to think about these reasons. This also led to the scene in front of him. Ignorant and boring. Hearing the demon's happy voice, Feng Zichen only smiled faintly. Then he heard a bell ring. Dang! The demon directly exploded, turning into Hongmeng Qi that filled the sky and was absorbed by Hongmeng Daozhong. Until he died, he did not realize what had happened. Here. But the boundless starry sky was Feng Zichen's base camp. Here, even saints were no match for Feng Zichen. When facing him, they had to be careful. Killing a half-step primordial chaos realm demon was too easy. He could kill it with a flick of his finger. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Feng Zichen stretched out his hand. Hongmeng Daozhong spun and flew over from afar, falling into his hand. Is this the poison of the Great Path? Holding Hongmeng Daozhong in his hand, Feng Zichen shook it gently. A small piece of grayish-black crystal fell from his body into Feng Zichen's hand. It was the poison of the Great Path that made people tremble in fear. However, this terrifying poison of the Great Path was now wrapped in Hongmeng Qi, completely isolating him from the outside world. The ability to corrode all the Great Paths could not be used at all. This thing is good. Unfortunately, it's useless against primordial chaos. After looking at the poison of the Great Path in his hand for a moment, Feng Zichen put it away with disinterest. The level of this poison of the Great Path was still a little low. It had not reached the level of primordial chaos. Although the power was not bad, it was only for those below primordial chaos. However, the effect was not so good for those who had reached the primordial chaos realm. Could cause some trouble for them, but it was far from fatal. However, existences below the primordial chaos realm would definitely die if they encountered this poison. However, this item was useless against Feng Zichen. His current opponents were all existences at the primordial chaos realm. This poison had no effect at all. And those below the primordial chaos realm were no match for him at all, so there was no need for this poison. For Feng Zichen, this item was of little value. It was tasteless, but it was a pity to throw it away. The blood altar has really succeeded. At this moment, Feng Zichen finally focused his attention on the blood altar. At this moment, the blood altar had exhausted all its strength after reviving the demon. Its entire body was dim and covered in cracks. It had completely lost its charm. It was like an ordinary stone that could shatter at any time. Of course, this did not mean that the blood altar was really destroyed. It was just that its strength was exhausted. After that, as long as it poured its strength again, the blood altar could return to normal. However, in the future, the only one who could use this blood altar was that demon. As a heaven-defying item, the blood altar naturally had all kinds of restrictions. Once it recognized a master, it could only revive its master and could not be used by others. A blood altar only recognized one master in its life. Therefore, in the end, this blood altar would also be destroyed. Otherwise, would it be left to revive that demon? But even so, Feng Zichen still looked at the blood altar with joy in his eyes. The revival of the demon just now meant that he had succeeded. This heaven-defying divine item that only existed in novels in his previous life had been materialized in the primordial world by him. This was an incredible achievement. Especially with the blood altar, Feng Zichen could use this item to revive some old friends and let them walk in the primordial world again. Moreover, the blood altar was also equivalent to a kind of foundation. It could revive the experts of the clan at any time. This meant that, in the battle with foreign clans, the human clan had more maneuverability. However, the blood altar still had some shortcomings. That was, the price to revive a person was too great. According to Feng Zichen's estimation, the price to revive a person on the blood altar was 4 times that of that person's origin. This was the result of Feng Zichen using the Hongmeng Daozhong to suppress the poison of the Great Path. If he followed the normal method and used the innate origin to offset the poison of the Great Path, the price would be more than 5 times. In other words, if he wanted to revive a Dalio Jinxian, the price he had to pay was 5 Dalio Jinxian of the same level. And of these 5 times, at least 2 times were dedicated to the heavens and earth. It had to be said that the heavens and earth were really dark. With a wave of his sleeve, Feng Zichen destroyed the broken blood altar and teleported back to the canyon. At this time, it had been thousands of years since Feng Zichen set up a trap to kill the innate ferocious beasts. During this period, countless innate ferocious beasts rushed over and were killed by the formation in the canyon and the Fushi hiding in the dark. No matter how many innate ferocious beasts there were in the untainted land, they should have been killed after nearly 1,000 years. At the very least, most of the innate ferocious beasts above the level of Daluojingxian should have been killed. After all, no matter how big the untainted land was, thousands of years was enough for Daluojingxian to rush over. As for those who didn't come, they were probably not affected by the demon god flag. After that, they wouldn't come. However, this didn't matter. After all, those who didn't come were in the minority. As long as most of the innate ferocious beasts were killed, the remaining innate ferocious beasts were nothing to worry about. Standing at the top of the canyon and looking down, one could see that the innate ferocious beasts were no longer rushing over in groups like before. They were also sporadic, and one didn't come over for a long time. Could be seen that, in the untainted land, there weren't many innate ferocious beasts still alive. Even if there were remaining, most of them were below the level of Daluojingxian. They couldn't make any waves and were completely nothing to worry about. At this point, half of the chaos of the innate ferocious beasts had been quelled. Next, as long as their influence on the untainted land was erased, the chaos of the innate ferocious beasts would be completely quelled. For example, now the murderous aura all over the untainted land. After the death of the innate ferocious beasts, the land that had been eroded by them needed to be treated. And the source of the chaos of the innate ferocious beasts, the origin of chaos that had flown over from the great chaos outside the realm, also needed to be purified. Otherwise, the spirit veins and earth chi in the untainted land would continue to be polluted by it to produce an endless stream of murderous aura and new innate ferocious beasts. If these were not resolved, the chaos of the innate ferocious beasts would not be quelled and could erupt again at any time. Moreover, the most worrying thing was the origin of chaos that had disappeared since it came to the untainted land. It was the biggest threat to the untainted land. If it was allowed to continue to erode the spirit veins and earth chi of the untainted land, then, one day, the spirit energy of the untainted land would be tainted with innate murderous aura, making it impossible for cultivators to absorb it. This would be a huge blow to the untainted land. When that time came, the demonic path, it would really become the only choice for all living beings. Polluting the spirit veins and earth chi of the untainted land so that the cultivators of the untainted land could not cultivate and could not change to the demonic path. This was the true goal of the Chaos Fiend God. The innate ferocious beasts and the Chaos Fiend God were all pretenses. It was just to cover up the deepest hidden scheme. This principle was also the same when Feng Zichen and the others were traveling through the untainted land. Seeing that the murderous aura in the untainted land was getting denser and denser, and that the spiritual energy was getting scarcer, countless cultivators were fighting over some cultivation resources, they suddenly realized. After understanding this, they naturally had to stop this scene from happening. At this point, everyone had the same interests. After all, what they cultivated was innate chi, not murderous aura. And the actions of the Chaos Fiend God were undoubtedly shaking their foundation. However, unlike the Chaos Fiend God in the untainted land, the Chaos Fiend God in the great chaos outside the realm was obviously much, much stronger. Their schemes were far from what Feng Zichen and the others could crack. In other words, no matter how hard Feng Zichen and the others searched, they could not find any trace of the origin of chaos. It was very awkward. But being weak was the original sin. Who asked them to be weak? If they were weak, they had to be prepared to pay the price. Of course, when people were forced into a corner, they could think of any way. After failing to find the origin of chaos, Feng Zichen and the others finally thought of a way that was not a way. Now, the only thing they could be sure of was that the origin of chaos was hidden in the spirit veins. However, Feng Zichen and the others did not know which spirit vein it was hidden in. That was because the primal chaos origin had been moving irregularly. Because of this, no one could find any trace of it. And the method that Feng Zichen and the others thought of had something to do with the spirit veins. Since they really could not find it, They would think of a way to reset the heaven and earth spirit veins and comb them inch by inch. They would always be able to force it out. However, resetting the heaven and earth spirit veins was a big project. The current primordial world had internal and external problems. Obviously, it was not suitable for such a big move. Therefore, he had an idea. But how to implement it would have to wait until the primordial world had completely calmed down. Thinking about it, it was not a matter of time. As for how to operate it, Feng Zichen also had his own ideas. Perhaps the merit of the future earthly emperor of the human race should be here. However, no matter what the future was, one thing was certain. After this incident, the murderous aura in the primordial world rose, and the tribulation aura was rampant. The innate spiritium was almost completely destroyed. The trend of its transformation to postnatal was completely irreversible. Originally, there might still be a glimmer of hope. But now there was really no hope. Quietly hiding his figure, Feng Zichen used his supernatural power to teleport the galactic cosmic light array and the flesh and blood of the innate ferocious beasts into the boundless starry sky, drawing a perfect end to the operation of killing the innate ferocious beasts. On the other side, Fuxi appeared in a daze and looked at the empty center of the canyon. Fortunately, soon, Feng Zichen's Gauchen avatar walked over and explained to Fuxi. Fuxi, there's no need to panic. It was Brother Ziwei who took away the galactic cosmic light array. As you can see, there aren't many innate ferocious beasts rushing over. From this, it can be seen that most of the innate ferocious beasts in the primordial world have been killed. Therefore, it's time for this operation to end. At the same time, it's time for you to fulfill your duty. Chapter 575. At this moment, in Gauchen's heart, he was really very happy. The plan this time was going too smoothly, and the result was beyond his expectations. Originally, he only planned to use this plan to clean up the connate ferocious beasts in the primordial world. However, he didn't expect that, in the end, not only did he clean up the connate ferocious beasts, but he also crippled the demon sect. At this moment, the demon sect could be said to have encountered the greatest crisis since its establishment. This time, in order to stop Feng Zichen's plan, the demon sect could be said to have gone all out. A total of 6 primordial chaos Tao masters and 4 half-step primordial chaos Taoist priests were mobilized. However, in the end, not only did the demon sect fail to stop Feng Zichen's plan to kill the connate ferocious beasts, but they also suffered serious injuries. First, the 6 Tao masters were severely injured by Heavenly Emperor Haoyan and the 3 emperors. Then, the 4 emissaries of the demon sect were killed by Great Emperor Ziwei. Before that, the demon sect had already lost an acting sect master, a deputy sect master, and 2 elders. According to this calculation, ever since they reappeared in the world, the demon sect had already lost a primordial chaos Tao master, 5 half-step primordial Taoist priests, and 2 late-stage sage-to-be great masters. There were even 6 Tao masters who were severely injured. No matter how deep the demon sect's foundation was, they could not afford such losses. Their strength must have been severely damaged. They had to hide for a period of time and could not continue to stir up trouble in the primordial world. Otherwise, they would really face the danger of being exterminated. However, since the demon sect had already appeared, it would be difficult for them to hide. Now, Haoyan and Luaiz, the 2 supremes of heaven and earth, seized the opportunity when the demon sect was severely injured and were besieging the demon sect all over the primordial world. If the demon ancestor, Rahu, did not make a move, then under the joint forces of Haoyan and Luaiz, the demon sect would lose a layer of skin even if they did not die. The blow to the demon sect was even more serious than the war between Taoists and demons back then. Fuxi. Now, the demon sect is severely injured and can no longer interfere in the primordial world. The connate ferocious beasts are almost wiped out, and the primordial world is gradually returning to peace. This is a good time for you to achieve your ambitions. Unify the primordial world, integrate the 10,000 races, and make the human race the strongest race in the primordial world. Through this, He can ascend to the throne of the heavenly emperor and become a secondary saint. Gao Chen said seriously as he looked at Fuxi. Although Feng Zichen was in charge of the trap and killing of the primordial ferocious beasts, and Fuxi was his assistant, the people in the untainted land did not know about it. It was probably because Feng Zichen deliberately faded away his own existence during the execution of the plan and pushed everything to Fuxi. Therefore, in the eyes of the living beings in the primordial world, it was all Fuxi's credit for killing the Khanate ferocious beast. And this move was not to trap Fuxi, but to boost his reputation. With the credit of quelling the chaos of the Khanate ferocious beasts, Fuxi's reputation could be said to be second to none in the primordial world. All the races were grateful for his kindness. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Fuxi had the upper hand. At this time, if Fuxi came forward to unify the untainted land and set rules for the various races, no one would object. And this was the foundation of becoming an emperor. If the primordial world could really be unified in Fuxi's hands, then he would be worthy of being the emperor. At the same time, the mandate of heaven would also descend on the human race to strengthen their luck and usher in a period of rapid development. Although it wouldn't make the human race the protagonist of the world in one fell swoop, it could still make the human race a first-class race in the primordial world. It would lay a strong foundation for becoming the protagonist of the world in the future. Your Majesty, Fuxi understands. Fuxi nodded and understood Feng Zichen's meaning. He didn't ask any more questions and directly turned to leave this place and return to the human race. It's so simple to talk to smart people. Gao Chen sighed as he watched Fuxi's figure leave. This operation had exposed too many details, and Fuxi must have noticed something. However, he didn't ask and suppressed all his doubts in the bottom of his heart. That was because he could tell from Gao Chen's words that he didn't want to say. This was a smart person. He knew what to ask and what not to ask. Collect. When he came to the deepest part of the canyon, Feng Zichen waved his sleeve and collected the 12 capital heaven divine banners hidden in the void. The current capital heaven divine banner was already very different from before. Not only did the Khanate spirit light around its sword, but the ancestral witch's shadow on it also became more realistic, as if it would walk down from the banner at any time. Judging from its aura, it had advanced from a superior-grade Khanate spirit treasure to a supreme-grade Khanate spirit treasure. Gao Chen wasn't surprised by that. It would be surprising if the capital heaven divine banner still couldn't advance after devouring the flesh and blood of so many Khanate spirit beasts at sage-to-be perfection. One had to know that although Feng Zichen killed the Khanate spirit beasts to refine the blood altar, he didn't forget about the capital heaven divine banner. The entire canyon. Feng Zichen and Fuxi worked together to set up 3 layers of formations. The outermost Hunyuan River Formation, the inner Galaxy Cosmic Light Formation, and the capital Heaven Divine Fiend Formation in the deepest part. Among them, the Khanate spirit beasts killed by the Hunyuan River Formation and the Galaxy Cosmic Light Formation were used by Feng Zichen to refine the blood altar. As for the Khanate spirit beasts killed by the capital Heaven Divine Fiend Formation, Feng Zichen didn't do anything and allowed them to be devoured. Those Khanate spirit beasts were definitely at sage-to-be perfection, since they could pass through the double strangulation of the Hunyuan River Formation and the Galaxy Cosmic Light Formation to reach the center of the canyon where the capital Heaven Divine Fiend Formation was located. How could the capital Heaven Divine Banner not advance after devouring those Khanate spirit beasts? However, although the capital Heaven Divine Banner had advanced to a supreme-grade Khanate spirit treasure, Feng Zichen wasn't too happy. It had cost so much just to advance to a supreme-grade Khanate spirit treasure. How much would it cost to advance it to a more powerful Khanate spirit treasure? At the thought of this, Feng Zichen had a headache. He wasn't happy about the advancement of the capital Heaven Divine Banner. Sigh! Shaking his head, Gao Chen also left the place to look for Hao Yin and Luiz to assist them in besieging the demon sect. At the same time, in the boundless starry sky, Feng Zichen's original body wasn't idle either. He was looking at the heavenly cycle star banner in front of him. After all, it was an acquired spirit treasure and its power wasn't enough. Under the attack of the 4 great emissaries of the demon sect and a group of Khanate spirit beasts, the heavenly cycle star banner had already become tattered and full of cracks. It was estimated that the heavenly cycle star banner would be completely destroyed after 1 or 2 more uses. There can be no construction without destruction. Today's destruction is for a better new life in the future. With a wave of his hand, Feng Zichen placed the 365 heavenly cycle star banners into their corresponding zhouxing and used their origins to regenerate these heavenly cycle star banners. As Feng Zichen said, the destruction of the heavenly cycle star banner today might not be a bad thing. As the saying goes, there can be no construction without destruction. He placed the damaged heavenly cycle star banner in the zhouxing to be regenerated. Under the nourishment of its origins, the reborn heavenly cycle star banner might be able to go against the Khanate and become a Khanate spirit treasure. That would be a true creation. After dealing with the heavenly cycle star banner, Feng Zichen focused his attention on the flesh and blood of the Khanate spirit beasts. Compared to the last time, the flesh and blood of the Khanate spirit beasts this time was much more. According to Feng Zichen's estimation, after completely refining the flesh and blood of these Khanate spirit beasts, the chaos origins obtained would at least be able to refine a Khanate spirit treasure. After all, these flesh and blood basically represented all the Khanate spirit beasts in the primordial world. It was not surprising that he could refine a Khanate spirit treasure. Unfortunately, Feng Zichen had no intention of refining a Khanate spirit treasure. Firstly, he had other uses for these chaos origins. Secondly, he did not have the ability to refine a Khanate spirit treasure. Refining a Khanate spirit treasure was not a simple matter. Materials alone were not enough. One also needed the corresponding strength. Otherwise, alchemy and weapon refinement would not be so difficult. Boom! Zhouxing shook. Endless starlight fell, and the Star Dao furnace appeared again, slowly refining the flesh and blood of the Khanate spirit beasts. This time, it took Feng Zichen nearly 10,000 years to refine all these Khanate spirit beasts. At this moment, Feng Zichen was surrounded by gray chaos origins qi. It spanned more than 3,000 miles and was abnormally dense, almost condensing into liquid. However, unlike the last time, this time, Feng Zichen did not condense the chaos baleful qi. Instead, he integrated it into the zhouxing. He wanted to use this to increase the power of the zhouxing. One could see, as the chaos baleful qi integrated, the zhouxing also underwent a change. Wisps of dark baleful qi floated around the zhouxing, mysterious and dangerous. Primordial divine baleful qi. This was a new Khanate divine baleful qi produced by the fusion of the zhouxing and the chaos baleful qi. It was extremely powerful, and Feng Zichen named it the primordial divine baleful qi. Although its level was only at the Khanate level, its power was comparable to the chaos baleful qi. How could it be? It was also the fusion of 2 supreme powers. How could it become weaker and weaker? The reason why the primordial divine baleful qi was at the Khanate level was completely controlled by the primordial world and the zhouxing itself. Now, with these 2 levels, they could not accommodate the existence of the chaos level. Therefore, the primordial divine baleful qi was at the Khanate level. However, with the advancement of the boundless starry sky and the primordial world, the primordial divine baleful qi would advance to the chaos level sooner or later. One had to know that the birth of the zhouxing was because he inherited part of Pangu's origin and most of the origin of the star demon god. Therefore, he had the potential to give birth to the chaos baleful qi. Now, they had integrated with the unknown chaos demon god's baleful qi. The integration of 3 types of chaos baleful qi created the primordial divine baleful qi. From this, one could see how high the essence of the primordial divine baleful qi was. In the future, it might be able to achieve the supreme baleful qi. Condense. Feng Zichen formed a seal with both hands and pointed at the boundless starry sky. Immediately, the zhouxing trembled together. The primordial divine baleful qi on it began to gather, forming a huge long sword in the starry sky. Its power, compared to the ferocious sword in Feng Zichen's hand, it was more than several times stronger. This was normal. After all, This long sword of baleful qi that traversed the starry sky was formed by gathering the power of the Zhousing. It was far from what that ferocious sword could compare to. Naturally, its power was stronger. Good, good, good. Looking at the huge sword in the starry sky, Feng Zichen was very excited. With this method, he wanted to see who in the primordial world dared to be arrogant in front of him. Even a saint would not feel good if he was hit by this sword, let alone others. In the future, whoever he did not like, he would slash with his sword. After practicing the primordial divine baleful qi for a while, Feng Zichen put it away with a lack of interest. No one tried the sword. It was boring for him to play with it. After that, Feng Zichen put away his unnecessary thoughts and focused on refining the blood altar. This time, he refined 7 blood altars in one go. He wanted to use this to resurrect Suiren, the Chou clan, and the 5 Dalio Jingxian from the 5 innate clans who had died for the human race. They were all heroes and meritorious ministers of the human race. They should not fall into a deep sleep. They should return from death and enjoy the worship of all living beings. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The 7 blood altars operated at the same time, and a shocking phenomenon was produced. Boundless blood rain floated down. The ancient and mysterious spirit summoning song sounded. Bit by bit, the true spirits gathered, and the ancient heroic spirits were reviving. At the same time, the chaos origin qi around Feng Zichen was rapidly being consumed to offset the karma of heaven and earth. However, the chaos origin qi around Feng Zichen was too dense. Even if he resurrected 7 people at the same time, the consumption was really nothing. It was just a drop in the bucket. Of course, this was also related to the fact that Suiren, the Chou clan, the water dragon, revered dragon, and the other 7 people had low cultivation realms when they were alive. The 7 of them had the cultivation of Dalio Jingxian when they were alive. The highest cultivation realm was only at the 3-flower realm. The origin energy required to resurrect them was equivalent to 21 Dalio Jingxian. It seemed to be a lot, but in fact, the chaos origin energy consumed by these 7 people was not as much as the origin energy consumed by Feng Zichen when he resurrected the demon sect emissary. The demon sect emissary. He had the cultivation of a half-step primordial chaos. The chaos origin energy required to resurrect them was not something that 21 Dalio Jingxian could compare to. The difference in cultivation realm was too great. It was also because Suiren's cultivation was low that the poison of the Great Path did not appear when they returned to the blood altar this time. This also let Feng Zichen know that not everyone's resurrection would attract the poison of the Great Path. This was exclusive to the strong. The stronger the cultivation, the more difficult it would be to resurrect a person, and the more accidents it would attract. Perhaps, the poison of the Great Path was only one of them. There were other unknown dangers that had not appeared. It seemed that his understanding of the blood altar was not deep enough. In the future, he had to take some time to study it carefully so that he could not find effective measures to remedy the situation when an accident happened. Just as Feng Zichen was thinking on the blood altar, the resurrection process of Suiren, the Chou clan, and the Water Dragon King had reached the most critical moment. Their innate, indestructible true spirits had been completely condensed. They were waiting for their spiritual intelligence to recover. Then they would be completely resurrected. However, the moment their spiritual intelligence recovered, Feng Zichen suddenly made a move. He waved his hands repeatedly and cast extremely mysterious Dao seals towards Suiren and the others, suppressing and sealing their newly recovered spiritual intelligence. You're tuning in to the Legend of the Vagabond YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.